So we're going to ask you all, thanks, Hillary, for starting the recording. So this is day 2 of our training, and this is Patrick again in a not snow-filled Nishinomiya here at 12:05 a.m. I hope you guys all have a wonderful winter landscape there to witness. We are on day 2. We're going to start off this day with your takeaways from day 1. Is that right, Hillary?
Yes, so I felt terrible. Well, terrible, kind of, that's exaggerating. I didn't feel great about how we wrapped up yesterday. I really would have liked to have been able to get a sense of how everybody felt about training, how things were going for them, if you had any like big takeaways. And instead, I was really focused on getting us, ready for today. So, um, does anybody want to volunteer some takeaways instead of going around the circle again? Is there anybody who'd like to volunteer a takeaway or two, or just pop something into chat that you feel you learned or made you think more or anything?
Actually, let me add to that. And if you got blocked and you say, "Hey, this sucked," feedback-wise, please tell us what blocked you. What was a problem?
I'm so hoping that if they got blocked, I heard about it in email or in
Yeah, you did an amazing job yesterday,
training.
Hillary. I listened to most of the recording after I left, and you did an awesome job. So you don't need to worry about that.
No. So takeaways. Does everybody just want to start chatting a few things that they learned or felt like they picked up from yesterday, and maybe we can just expand upon 1 or 2 points if you guys can pop something in the chat. If you tell me you got nothing out of yesterday, I'm going to feel really sad though too. So um, don't make me call on people.
Well, I was going to suggest that we do threaten to do that.
Yeah, we're going to have to
Um,
threaten to call on people. I'm so
so
sorry.
so
Nobody
let's
wants to hear from me again, but I can tell you, being a Central Flows user, the
Mhm.
integration is amazing. Not having to do all that manual work of sending the emails, trying to figure out what status it's in, trying to figure out where the form actually is. Um,
Right.
all of that stuff has really been amazing for our company. Anyway,
Oh,
specifically
excellent.
because we had a
Excellent stuff.
lot of issues with paper getting lost, document libraries, the files disappearing, um, not being able to pull reporting from the data. So we had a lot of things that were not good, and this has really cleared everything up. So
And we've fixed
everyone
like
really
20
bought in
20
and they're really happy with it. So
amazing. Awesome. So I mean, we fixed like 10 or 20 bugs in the dashboard as well in the last release since September. So I mean, these are like esoteric bugs, obviously, but it's gotten a lot more state. We've had significant testing on the Central Flows v3 to try to you know uh, do a comprehensive uh, stabilization effort. Try to fix because we know you're using. We got several customers actually. I think we have at least 3 customers who are using this, um, and you're number one, obviously. So thanks for that comment. But we think that Central Flows should be used by all of our customers, and the reason why is because number one, it centralizes your workflows, so you don't have to worry about having Power Automates everywhere and trying to manage them all. Number two, you can actually report on data because it's now centralized. But number three, you've got these other things like dashboards, one-stop shop people can go to get an update on where their forms are. Mel showed this yesterday. You've got integrated task panes in your forms, so you've got usability improvements. So because if you got lots of forms, where are you going to add the workflow? Where in the form are you going to add the workflow? Are you going to add to the bottom? You're going to add to the top. So we've centralized that into the right side of the task pane. We've unified the look and feel to make it easy for users, to not be completely, like today, everyone goes to the web and the UI has changed all the time, right? So it's like Microsoft changes the UI every other day, and you don't know where everything is. But for this, you've got the task pane. It's all in the same place all the time, right? So that I think that's a huge thing. But then it goes way beyond that because we've added these features now for, as I was mentioning before people joined, that the form will, and Mel didn't mention this yesterday, but the form will automatically log you out, log the user out after a specified time that you determine as a forms designer. You can say, hey, it's 10 minutes, 15 minutes, 5 minutes, whatever. So it'll automatically log the user out. And more importantly, it will save the data to their local machine. So then when they come back to their machine, say they were taking a coffee break or something, they'll see this pop-up saying, hey, we automatically saved your content. Click here to continue. All right. So, obviously there's a security issue there, which we're going to talk about today. Ashish is going to show this wonderful lab showing one-time authentication. We want to add that so that once they come back to their computer after they've logged out, assuming that, well, obviously people have to log into their computer first. So they're going to log into their computer first, so they're safe. And then they're going to see this screen showing that their data has been saved. They're going to click on OK, and they're going to continue with the form. But let's say that they didn't have that log out screen. We have the one-time authentication that we'll show in Lab 1 today to walk you through how to authenticate external users. But Misty, what do you think? I mean, that log out, automatic save of data.
Yeah, we have labs, right? So shared areas where they may have one person logged in, and we also have the donor areas as well. So a lot of times you'll have somebody that is, on the fly trying to, I don't know, submit, let's say, time off or something. And that would be, they're not supposed to do that right now because there is no log out, there is no autosave, there's nothing, like that. So they're supposed to use a designated machine. But if we had the auto log out and the save, they could they could be working literally from any machine wherever they're at. So, which would be nice
That's
because they're not allowed to have their phones on the floors. So
that's
their
great.
cell phones. Yeah.
That that's great. Well, they don't have to have a cell phone if we don't implement one-time authentication. We don't have to implement that
Yep.
because they were logged into the network, right? This is only an
Yep.
issue if people are external. Sorry, Hillary.
I'm sorry, I just wanted to touch one point with Benjamin. He mentioned in chat that the Central Flows lab was a little confusing to him because he was not familiar with the product. You guys, when I send out the recording links today, I will also include a link to the most recent Central Flows webinar. So Benjamin, you'll have that if you'd like to watch it, and it'll make it easy for you to kind of get up to speed on that, okay?
Yeah, so for people who are not familiar with Central Flows, this is our replacement for Power Automate, and we've talked about this in multiple webinars over the last multiple years. Nothing against Power Automate. Power Automate is Microsoft's solution for workflow enabling Power Apps or InfoPath forms or whatever. And there's like 3 or 4 different issues though. Number one, the stuff isn't centralized. So you have to create, and Hillary knows this better than anyone because she's been the Power Automate goddess, well, and the Power Apps goddess for Qdabra. So we've actually helped lots of customers use the Power Platform. We're kind of agnostic. We don't really care what you guys use. We just want to help you. And Hillary has, I hope you're okay there, Hillary's coughing. But Hillary has been really instrumental in enabling, Power Apps, and Power Automate for customers. And the problem with Power Automate is that they're everywhere and they're hard to maintain. Hillary, am I right?
Yeah, absolutely. And that was one of the things Misty mentioned in chat too, was when you've got a non-centralized system, which most of us have, all of a sudden you've got 15 flows on 15 different lists or libraries that you're using to basically send the same notification. Hey, somebody submitted something, go take a look. Hey, somebody approved something, go take a look. You have all this rework. You have these different flows, they are owned by different people if your organization is like most organizations. And so now, Becky's left. She's no longer with the company. You've got to find a Power Automate you've got to find a Power Platform admin to go find the flow and share it with you. There's 6,000 flows in your environment. It can be difficult to manage.
And so the other thing is you've got all of these different workflow processes. It's not just one form. You've got other forms. Misty's got 175. My gosh, that's amazing. But you can't do that all. Like you can't have a centralized location for checking the status of your company's processes if you're using Power Automate, because it just doesn't centralize. It's per document library. Yeah. So and therefore what we want to do is we want to give people a one-stop shop so that they could use a dashboard. And we provide the dashboard. Actually, that was one of the major freebies for this feature. The dashboard is free. So you get this dashboard form and you can just deploy it and you can see status. You can see all the different forms that you're monitoring. So it gives your administration a quick way to see what's missing, what's behind, who's got the hot potato, so on. I mean, Misty, how important is that?
I was just gonna say, can I say something? Because that was, it was literally full-time administration of trying to figure out the status of somebody's form. So they would have to put a ticket in with the help desk, or they would call me directly. We'd have to figure out where it is, what happened to it, what the status is. And now with the administrators owning, the form owners own the administration of their own forms. So they are able to go into the dashboard. They can see all the forms. They can see what the status is. They can see any notes. They can see the history. So
I mean, you've got separate admins. Do you want to share out your screen and actually show
it's
people?
amazing.
I mean, this is not an advertisement here. We're actually trying to do a takeaway on day one and give people a kind of sense of why this is important. Because I reviewed the recording, and thanks, Misty, for being so amazing.
So here's our dashboard with all of our production forms. And a big one are like I don't know, we'll show the HR forms, I guess. So you can see who it was submitted for, the current assigned status, the status that it's in, when it was created and modified, who last touched it. And then they can also go in and see the whole history. So I can see who submitted it at what time, and I can see where it's at. So it's been really helpful for HR. They own all of their own forms now, which a big chunk of these forms are theirs, and they can go in. So now warehouse knows, okay, if I'm supposed to have a task and I don't have it, I can get hold of HR and have them look instead of having us do it.
How often do they use the dashboard notes? So you can actually add a note via SharePoint without actually going to the form. How often does that happen?
We don't, it depends on the form. I don't think that they use it a whole lot because they also have comments inside the forms. And because a lot of the people are not administrators, we tend to use the comments inside the form. So that way, the submitter or whoever can just go in, since they have the form open anyway, they can go in and just see the comments there. But it is used. They do use the dashboard notes. It's mostly for administrators. They mostly are the ones that use those dashboard notes.
64,013 or 43, I should say.
Yeah.
Awesome. Any other comments on day one? Thanks, Misty. I really appreciate you sharing that out.
Sure.
We have to get you on V3, and we're committed to doing that. So we're really happy to have you here in the training. Day three, Central Flows V3 has a lot of features. You've been to the webinar, but that main one is that automatic saving. I think that's the key thing there. Is that maybe it doesn't matter for you so much, but
yeah.
Does anyone else have any feedback for day one? We're really actually looking for your takeaway. what was a wow to you? What was the? Are you kidding me? Or what
Yeah,
was? Oh, this is lame. Yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
yeah, this is Alex. And you can take it not necessarily as a takeaway, but one thing, and I understand the rationale they explain why you don't have a delete button, but to me, it seems that the interface, especially when you add the fields, right, seems in a way incomplete when you can add, but you cannot remove.
Yeah, yeah, you're right.
So I think that that's
Thank
definitely
you.
something that at least I would expect.
Yeah,
Just it's like a kind of generally accepted normal practices, right? Building any user the interface. When you provide ability to add something, you kind of provide ability to remove that. I do understand the concern where you're coming from, just in case you remove and everything goes to the haywire. Yeah, that's there's certainly always will be there. I don't know how you can go around it, but maybe at least for new forms, have this ability to basically add what you have removed, and it can be for a variety of reasons, but just kind of carry this, for example, you added a bunch of the fields and you can remove, you're not going to use them. And you kind of aware of that, you don't need those fields, but let's say you left the company, someone else pick it up and just see those bunch of the fields and just like, okay, what do I do with it?
yeah. No, it's great feedback. I mean, like I said yesterday, I mean, the problem is you've got, potentially thousands of forms you've submitted, and if you allow some new forms designer to go in there and delete a field, it may invalidate all that old data, which is going to create a problem, right? I mean, it's kind of analogous to the UI challenge that companies have today on the web. They can't just go in there and delete features, although they do quite often. They try to give you this like nudging. They nudge you toward the next feature, like, hey, please click this button and we'll give you the new UI, right? And that UI change is kind of analogous to this issue because this is different. It's data structure, it's data format issue. We're trying to preserve data from previous submitted forms. That's why we don't. Well, delete is definitely in the schedule. We're going to implement this, but it hasn't been a priority because of this issue of old data, right? If you delete a field, the old data, what happens to those filled in fields for that old data schema element, right? That's the big issue,
Right.
right? And Microsoft had this
And
issue before we even existed, right? I mean, so sorry.
that is correct. And again, I agree with you on that one. And the point that I was trying to make, perhaps, and when is going to be most harmful, right? When you delete the field on the existing form, right? Um, and but at least when you create a new form, because you might be kind of will be still brainstorming, trying to figure out like what the field should be, where it's supposed to go, and figure out the fields.
Oh yeah, for that situation, I
So
totally.
it's
Yeah,
kind of like a
right.
collaborative process, right? So I mean,
Yeah,
it's guaranteed you're going to add something that you're going to regret, right? But the fact that you advance so far, and then like at the very end, you made a mistake, and then just
yeah.
like, okay,
No, that's
what
a
do I
great
do now? If you
idea.
want to start
No,
clean, you have to go all the way
that's a
back,
great
which is
idea. The form should have the intelligence to know data has been saved for it, and the
yeah, at
form
least
should
like
have
for
the.
the new forms, have this option to remove the fields, just like a new form designer, right? Where it's a new form, then you be able to can remove what you have added. But for the existing forms, absolutely right. You can pretty much hide the delete option, because at that point you probably don't want to delete anything, especially
Yeah,
if the fields already were created based on that
we're going to
form.
implement delete in the next 6 months, I guarantee it. But I mean, the problem is we have migration paths too, so this happens. This is a common thing. So thank you so much for that feedback. I obviously. I'm going to go after I'm taking a note right now for this. I'm writing it down. We're going to actually implement this feature for the schema in the next
Hey,
6 months.
Patrick. I feel like moving a field it's the same kind of thing on a new form. If you accidentally
Yeah,
created a field and it's not in the right
yeah,
group and you need to move it, that would
can't
be,
do it.
yeah. Hmm.
Yep,
Okay,
and
so Alex
absolutely.
needs to
But it is
delete Yeah, Misty.
Yeah, it happened to me because once you, especially when you kind of a novice or new to that, if you didn't select the correct parent folder or the folder when you create, right, you just go ahead and jump to create a field, and you might create a couple of them, and then just like, oops, kind of where? Oh no, that's not where I wanna.
That's
And
great
then it's
feedback.
pretty much like, either you have to recreate them exact same fields but on a different folder, right? Or you pretty much have to go and drop the whole form and start over again. And like I said, if you already have like maybe 15, 20 fields and just going back, and it's gonna hurt.
Well, if you ever have 20,000 forms you're submitted with the old structure, then it's a hurry. I don't think you have that problem if you don't have prior data. I think it's fine. So I've taken these 2 notes here. So Alex, thank you so much. Need to delete fields, and Misty, need to move fields. Who else has comments for day 1? This is awesome, actually. We're getting incredible feedback. Yeah, I mean, we should give you more than the $1,000 credit. If you finish the labs, we'll give you that credit for the feedback as well. Extra credit. Anyone else have feedback for us in day 1?
So I mentioned it yesterday, but being able to put some formatting within the cells of a table instead of just the field.
Yep, I saw that.
I think Jimmy said that it is on the radar. Or on the list, as it were. But yeah, that's the thing that I struggle with.
That was the most painful thing from reviewing the recording after I left yesterday, was that watching that interaction, because well, the solution that was proposed is not really a good solution. Adding other, like
right,
tables
adding blank tables and columns to try to build our own. Yeah, the roll our own padding. It was like, oh, ouch.
No, don't do that, Allie. Just wait for us to.
No, I would prefer not to.
She was just thinking out of the box. Yeah.
Yes, I can see that there are options.
It's not that hard to add padding to repeating. These are layout tables or repeating tables or both?
Well, so like in the forms that we created yesterday, all of the text is right up against the left side of the screen if you left a line. Whereas like I would still want something left aligned, but maybe I want to bump it in 10 or 15 pixels just so it's a little easier to see it.
Oh yeah, thank you very much. Awesome. Any other feedback, Kelly? That's great. That was actually
actually, I'd probably be able to even suggest something. Maybe when you enter the text, let it enter as a HTML instead of table. So pretty much we can provide the formatting that we want in HTML, the language. So then it will be done pretty much interpreted by the
question of whether, but that's a data type issue. It's a data type issue.
Yeah. Yes. Then you face quite different issues. Yeah. True.
Thanks for being creative, though.
And we do support CSS. And you guys will you'll have a lab on day 4 that talks a bit more about using CSS and using JavaScript in your forms. So as far as workarounds go, yeah.
And you can have rich text fields in those tables, those cells.
So basically, we can inject our own CSS and JavaScript, right?
Yes. Yeah, you can.
To get the format. Okay.
I mean, there's a lot of unlimited options here if you're willing to go for it. Okay, thanks, Alex and Allie. Awesome feedback. Really appreciate it. Any other feedback for us before we kick off here? We're okay on time. But any other feedback for us? We're doing a takeaway for day 1, and specifically asking for your takeaways, your highlights. But we're happy to hear feedback too. That's actually better for us. Chris, are you there? Is Chris there? I don't see Chris.
I am here.
Chris, takeaway for day 1. I'm sorry to pick on you. You're such a long-time customer. We have to pick on you.
I've been chatting on the thing there.
Sorry. I'm not paying attention to that. I'm just watching my screen here.
That's okay. It's interesting to hear all the other pieces, parts, because I did help with some of the other feedback with Designer and stuff like that, and
yeah, you did for sure. Oh my gosh, you've been critical on that.
So it's just been interesting to see. I'm not the only person that has problems following directions.
Oh my gosh.
But beyond that, it's good to go over the basics. It's always good to learn some new features like we have. And like people have asked for, it's like, I've never seen central flows, so I have no clue. And you can expound on that, but not during class. So,
right.
It's all good.
Well, I want to go back. I'm just looking at my text here for the chat. So CH comment first was saying the completed form before the demo would be helpful. I actually gave that feedback to everyone right before you guys joined. So thanks for mentioning that. And Chris, you said the new FormsDesigner features, awesome. So any other feedback, Hillary? You've been watching this thread here. So anything we should talk about before we get going to the next step?
I think we're probably good to go. I really appreciate everybody chatting in some feedback, and I think I feel better about the day one wrap up that we had it now rather than not having it at all.
So we're not ignoring any comments here.
I don't think so. There's chat about the wish for delete. Irina mentioned that when she clicks on a field, it doesn't highlight the related box on the canvas. I took a note on that. Some requests for webinars I pasted in our YouTube channel, and I'll include a link to the flows, the most recent flows webinar when I send out links today to the recordings. Generally an appreciation for the additional FormsDesigner features from those who have used it thus far.
Thank you, Caroline. Thank you, Caroline. Mm-hmm. And then CH responded again, saying I really like the Lab 2 Smart Validation. I can see you using that tool often.
Mm-hmm.
Sorry, CH, I don't know who you are. Kathy?
Kathy. It's Kathy.
Awesome.
It's
Kathy.
interesting that, oh, I see. Yeah, it's interesting that you're not seeing the full name. Yeah.
I'm just looking at my phone because I'm showing it my screen.
Got it. Okay.
Yeah. So so today is day 2, and thanks for the takeaway, the feedback. I really appreciate that. We have 4 labs today. We have 3 plus the bonus, and a lot of stuff going on today. We're just absolutely gobsmacked. Is that the right word? GOBSMACKED. At the number of people who have actually agreed to take the course for credit. Thank you very much. So that raises the bar on our side as well, as you know. So we had this recap for day 1. We just did that. And day 2 is about FormsDesigner. Now, we've already seen FormsDesigner. You've been using it in day 1. But for day 2, we're going to take it another step forward. So we're going to show you how to add a new XML template part. Now, we've added like 4 new XML template parts in the last release. Well, since earlier this year, since June. So Ashish has been key in this. He's been driving this forward. So what are XML template parts? Let's just ask someone random here. Ashish, what are XML template parts?
Hello, everyone. So XML template parts are like reusable template parts that we can inject into other forms. So we design it once and use it everywhere. So they make our development life cycle very much easier. So yeah,
for sure. So it's reusable parts that you can re-add to the forms. And the key thing about these forms is the forms have, not only do the forms have a view, they have a data source, right? Because data source is key for your business process. And then you have to kind of envision the data source. That's your view, the view. And then you've got logic behind the scenes. It's like orchestrating how the data is processed in the form. And then you finally got the data connections to send the data somewhere. So these four critical constituents are all included in the XML template part, which means that when you add an XML template part to your form, you're not just getting a section in your view or extra fields, or you're getting the whole 4 areas. You're getting the whole kit and caboodle. Does that make sense in Nepalese, You've never heard of that before, Ashish, right? Kit and caboodle.
No, not really.
So what does kit and caboodle mean? Hillary, you're the English Lit major here. You can comment on this.
You'll be shocked to learn that kit and caboodle doesn't come up much in English Lit. But yeah, it's it's the whole Fandango, right? The entire thing.
So who knows what Fandango means? So Ashish, do you know what Fandango means? Fandango. I don't know what that means.
The description I find online says an informal phrase that means the whole lot of something or everything available. Here are some synonyms: full treatment, whole kit, whole caboodle, whole shebang, and whole work. So I hope this was helpful.
So the XCP is a caboodle. This, you can add this to your forms, and it saves tremendous amount of time. Not just because it gives you an extra section in your forms view, because it adds all the other stuff that's really important. So Ashish is going to start with that and show that. And these XML template parts are absolutely critical for saving you time and adding features and functionality to your forms. So we've created, countless solutions over the years, and we've packaged them into these XTPs. And this is something that, I'm sure Irina is listening with her ears wide open here, because it's going to save you a tremendous amount of time. And we're going to show this again in Lab 2 with, Ashish is going to show it in Lab 1 with the OTP. So you're going to add authentication for external users. And then Hillary will show it again in Lab 2 with the DBXL extensions. So the DBXL is our connections to SQL. The first accelerator we did back in 2006, 2005, our scalability. So Microsoft released InfoPath. They did not release a scalable solution. SharePoint libraries could only scale to 5,000 or so items at that time. Major problem. I mean, obviously the other problem was the repeating sections, the repeating tables and things like that. There was no hierarchical structure for SharePoint. So we solved both problems in one shot here and gave you a query for SQL in the same thing. We created an accelerator called DBXL Database Accelerator is what it's called. We're going to have a slide here at the end, very briefly. We'll show you the architecture, but what it is it's a way to automatically connect your forms to SQL to give your forms the scalability they deserve. So it's about, it's not just about submitting forms to SQL. Obviously, you need more than 5,000 forms. So we have customers that have millions of forms in SQL. It's also about this whole, sort of dynamic query ability. So you've got lots of data in SQL. You want to query it, and you don't want to have to actually provide specific queries. So these are hard-coded things. We don't do that in DBXL. DBXL is completely abstract, and that gives you a lot of power, and it's easy to use. We'll show you in this lab too how to create these abstract queries to query SQL, any table in SQL to get data. And Hillary's going to show how to do this to calculate the average rating for a form. One of these ratings for these how did you like the lab kind of thing. And then in Lab 3, Ashish will come back and he'll show how to copy and paste rules. This is a very simple feature that we've added. We didn't have it before, but it's important. So you can now copy and paste business logic from one field to another, from one button to another. He'll show that. And then Hillary will follow up at the end with another bonus demo on what is it, Hillary? We don't have it in the slide. We didn't have that slide. The slide's wrong.
Oh, I'm sorry. So it's just coming soon features. We're going to take a quick look at the functions edition that you guys will have used a little bit in the lab I'm going to help you with today. We're going to take a quick look at some UI revisions that are coming, and we're going to see the beginnings of repeating tables.
Function editors and repeating tables, right?
Sure. Function editor, repeating table, UI.
Awesome. Okay, so sorry guys, we're a bit off the script today here. It's all good. I don't want to to lose people though, so we want to keep going here. We got to get to the demos. It's a key thing. So we're going to start off with Ashish. Ashish, I think you're. Well, first, so we just updated this slide. So the next slide is, are you ready? So I'm going to pick on 4 people. And we're not going to pick on the people we picked on before. And actually, Hillary, can you actually call out 4 people who have not talked so far in the call and ask them this question? Day 2 ready?
Sure, yeah, absolutely. Let's see, let's start with Irina.
Why me again? You been
Why
picking
you
on me
again?
yesterday.
I'm picking on you. Well, you know, you're easy to pick on. I know you know how to unmute yourself, y'all.
Oh yeah. Sorry, yeah, for some reason it's always unmuting me.
Yeah. So Irina?
I almost finished day 1. I mean, I did 2 of them. I'm on a third one, but I was busy with my work actually yesterday.
Yeah.
So any questions on yesterday content? You know what? I just like zoom through the test, was not really thinking about it. I find it very close to the info path, so it wasn't too hard to do it. Like, yeah.
Right.
And do you have no, I do not have this experience.
The question, Hillary, what's this question? What is the benefit of web service? That's so random.
It is a random question. Question.
Yeah, and I'm ready. I'm ready for lab 3.
Feel free to skip that one. We'll be able to answer that one after the lab. He'll take that one out, and then you're ready to do 3 labs. I know you are. Yeah. I'll tell you.
Of course,
I'll tell you.
Yeah.
I'll tell you you're ready.
Who's next on these 4 questions? We have 4
Benjamin.
questions now.
Benjamin.
But Benjamin, actually, didn't he have a question in chat earlier?
I had just provided a little bit of feedback on my takeaway from yesterday.
We haven't heard his voice yet. So,
yeah, this is true. This is true. Let me serenade you. Yeah, so I did finish the labs from day 1. I don't have any specific questions, but as I said in chat, I felt like on the lab 3, I really didn't understand exactly what I was doing because I had never seen central forms before. Yeah. I don't have any experience with DBXL, so it was a little over my head, and I really felt that I would have liked to, instead of, because it felt a little streamlined, and so if we had started from like the base of like, oh, let's go over how this actually connects into the database and what is actually happening there with all these pieces and the environment variables, I would have liked that, but I do understand that we just didn't really have time to do that.
No, we should have done what you said. We should have done exactly what you said. That was perfect feedback. And I actually gave this feedback to Mel before the call because I had the same idea at the beginning. Here, she should have showed kind of an overview at the beginning. I mean, she did an amazing job in the lab. Nothing against what she did because it was quite impressive. But it's obviously difficult to abstract things. Like, how many levels of abstraction do humans do on a daily basis? I mean, probably 3, maybe 4, but not 5. So and you're thinking to yourself, well, what are 5 levels of abstraction? Well, I mean, there are 5 levels of abstraction, right? For daily life, we have these abstraction levels. And we often don't think about them. We just say, well, I got to get up and got to do my work and blah, blah, blah. And so I gave that feedback to Melanie. Thanks, Benjamin, for the feedback. I appreciate you.
Yeah, I mean, that being said, I did complete the lab and I made it through. So there's that. It's just I just didn't feel like I really understood how I got there, So yeah. But I am ready to do 3 labs today. I am ready.
Amazing.
You're a trooper.
So Hillary, how many people finished labs yesterday? Do you know?
I know I had at least 6 complete all 3. And obviously you guys have until January 15th. And like Irina said, you know, I know you've got actual work to do too. So yeah, they're keeping me posted as they finish them and I'm tracking.
Sweet.
All
So
right.
do you want to ask someone else or should
Yeah,
we go?
Sharon. Anything
Hi,
from Sharon?
I did, I'm here. I did finish the labs from day one, and I think my questions have been answered.
Good.
I have a lot of DBXL experience, and okay.
You don't have any DBXL experience, right?
Not a lot, no.
Yeah, because you just bought Qdabra, right? GDIT, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, so we need to, we have DBXL training as well, and we've got lots of webinars you can look at. So thanks for being patient with us with all this. It's very difficult with training because we're trying to present new features at the same time. We have this poll to do the standard basic default stuff. So over the last couple of years, we've actually done the standard basic default stuff on day one. Say, hey, here's how you migrate forms. Here's how easy it is to migrate forms from Informatica to Qdabra. We didn't do that this year. And the reason why is because we have so much new stuff we've been doing. We really felt like we needed to talk about that because the migration stuff has been going on for 2 or 3 years. Now we know that a lot of customers have not migrated to from InfoPath yet. So that's still a hot topic, and we have lots of training on that. So just FYI, I'm sure Irina has already looked. I'm sorry, Irina's a different company, but I'm sure that you've got access to content on YouTube, on our YouTube channel that shows how to do the migration. We've got documents on how to migrate. We're going to show you on day 4 how to use our new chatbot to ask any question, even about this week's labs, and get really detailed answers on how to do it. Actually, I was working with my tester earlier today about this because he's testing day 2, lab 2, Hillary's lab, which is coming up after Ashish is here soon. And he had a bug in it, and he actually made a mistake. But the lab might have been better in terms of his highlighting of certain elements. And I just had him go to the doc chat and ask it how to fix the issue. And it did have a good answer. So we have, AI alternatives here to help you with migration, but we're also going to be here to answer your calls directly as humans, not AIs. Okay, so shall we start? Any other questions or comments on day 1 before we go day 2? Day 2, we've mentioned what it's going to entail. Ashish, you're up number 1, lab 1. Are you here?
Yes, I'm here. So today for lab 1, I'll be taking you through qAuthXTP, which can be used to authenticate our forms against external users so that our sensitive data remains safe. And yeah, so I'll be going through the lab and explain how to add qAuthXTP to your existing form and configure it all. And yeah, we're going to set up some rules and actions.
Awesome. I'll stop sharing. Are you ready to share?
Yes. Can you see my screen?
Yep.
Okay, so here's the document for our day 2 lab 1. So please keep it open. And first of all, we have some prerequisite, and it is just to add a new form, starter form, which you can find from the link given here. And so please go ahead and download it. I have already downloaded it, so I will not do that. And after that, I'll be going through this Qdabra Forms Launcher and open our FormsDesigner. So I'll go to Manage Templates and upload a new template. So I'll be uploading the template that I had just downloaded. So please give it a proper name. I'll give it a name like and upload it. Yeah, then we can get to start designing it. So this is very much a blank form. We don't have any content here, and we'll be adding qAuthXTP in this form. But before adding the XTP, we'll need to create a new view for our XTP. So please go to the designer.
Sorry to interrupt here, Ashish, but we need to give them the why and the wherefore. So why is this important?
Oh yeah. So some forms can be sensitive, right? We want to give access to users that are authenticated and are valid users for our form. So to do that, we validate our users against OTP via their email. And this is what our in form is going to look like. So they will give an email and an OTP code. And after we authenticate them, yeah.
Go ahead. Sorry.
After we authenticate them, then only they can access the actual form. So let's say I give in some invalid email, all right, and give maybe some OTP
Yeah, so
and
the
try to log
point
in there.
is to give them ability for external users to authenticate to forms. So I don't know if people realize this, but Qdabra Forms supports external authentication, so external forms. So you can actually have your forms served to people that are outside of your organization, outside of SharePoint. And this is really key because you don't have to pay for SharePoint licenses for them. They can fill out forms externally with this feature. So this is key for external users who need to access your form processes. Thanks, Ashish.
Yeah, so first of all, we are going to be adding a new view for our qAuthenticator XTP. So please go into this view button on the bottom of the page and add a new view. So we'll be naming it, let's say, login view. The designer will automatically switch to the new view, and we are going to be adding our XTP in here. So let's select qAuthXTP. You can find it in here from this selection menu. Click on the qAuth and click on this add button. So our XTP has been applied. So let's first clear up this unnecessary space above here. So after this, we'll be adding. So we have added the qAuthXTP. Now after that, we'll be adding qrules to our form, because by default in our starter forms we won't have Qdabra rules. So we need to add that for this XTP to work. So please go into this qrules button at the bottom of the screen here. And it says this form does not yet have qrules, so we can add it. Yeah, so our form now has qrules. And after this, we are going to be configuring our qAuthXTP. You can also find the instructions to configure it here, or you can refer the document here because it might make it easier to find things from this document. So first of all, we are going to select finished loading node from Qdabra rules. And we are going into the rules pane by clicking this rules button. So first of all, we need to add a rule to load our files for qAuthXTP. So what we'll be doing is, we have already added a new action rule in here by clicking this add button. And after that, we'll select set a field value option from run these actions select. So from in here, select this set a field value option. And after that, we are going to click on this field input. So after this, we are going to select qAuth actions node load files node. So we go here, we switch to XTP logic qAuth. And after that, we go to actions and load files. And we click on OK. After that, we need to set the value of this field to go. So we'll be doing that. Yeah, so the rule to load our files has been set up. We can click on done from here. And as you can see, we have that guide in here as well, but I'll be referring the document for our ease. So now we need to modify a rule named set qrules command. So for that, we need to switch to XTP logic qauth. So we'll be switching it to from here. And after that, we'll go to qauth, Qdabra rules temp, and temp command node. Qdabra rules temp and temp command. So we can see that there is a rule named set rule qrules command, and there is two asterisks in front in here. So we need to modify this rule. So first of all, what we are going to do is we need to point this stop node to Qdabra rules command node. So I'll go from in here and switch to Qdabra rules, and you can see the command node under Qdabra rules here. So I'll click on OK after that. And after doing this, we need to set like modify another rule which has a name of set a field value. So we'll click on this action rule, and you can see it has a field of temp result and value of your qrules result. We need to modify this value. So click on this input field. So it will open up a formula editor. So what you can do is you can just remove this text from here. Now we need to insert a field or group. So we'll click on this button and it will open up data fields. After that, we'll go to Qdabra rules and select the result field, and we'll click OK. And we'll again click OK on the formula editor. So we have also set up this set qrules command action rule. So you can click on done. So after this, most of our setup for qauth XTP has been done. So we can remove this uses field. So for that, I'll just click on this section and hit backspace or delete button from keyboard. So it has been deleted, and we also don't need this section from here. So I'm also going to delete this, and let's save it for now. So let's open this form. So you can see that we don't see our login screen here. What it is showing is our main view, this view1, because we have not set up our form to load the login screen first. So right now we'll be doing this. So we'll set up our login view load. So first of all, we need to click on the form button at the bottom page of the panel. You can do it either from view1 or login view, but I'll switch to login view for now. So from this section, we'll add form load rules. So what these rules allow us to do is run some certain rules on form load. So like when the form first loads, these action rules will run. So let's add a new action rule. So we'll name it switch to login view. And after that, we're going to select the view which we are going to switch to. So from the run these actions selection, you can select this option called switch views, which allows us to switch our view to another. And as you can see, the login view is selected first. So for now, I'll keep it there because we want to select switch to login view on every page load. So let's do that. And we need to also add a condition for it, because certain conditions need to be satisfied to switch to login view, because if a user is authenticated, we don't need to show the login view, right? So if the user is not authenticated, then we'll show this login view. So please click. So first of all, to do that, you'll need to click on this condition button. It will open up a formula editor. And after that, we're going to click on insert field or group button and select is verified node. So we'll go to insert field or group button, select XTP logic keywords. And after that, we'll go into keywords actions login is verified. So actions login is verified. So after selecting this rule, we need to add a condition because we have just selected a field right now, and we need to verify if the field is verified attribute is true or not. So for that, please append is not equals true after our field. So the final formula should look like this. There should be a space between is verified and is not equals to. So yeah, please do this and click on OK. So the condition is that if the form is not verified, then we'll automatically switch to login view. So I'll click on done and save the button for now. Save the form for now. So let's open up the form again. As you can see the login screen now, but we have not set up our initial page, right? And we have also not set up what happens after we click on this login button. So now we'll be doing that. So we'll set up the logic to switch view after user is authenticated. So for this, we'll switch to our login view, which I'm already in. And in this login view, click on this login button. And if you click on this rules button, you can see that there's already one rule for login, but there's not a rule after successful login. So we'll add a new rule for that. Let's click on OK. We'll name it switch view. So for that, please click on this add new action rule. And for this rule one, I'll name it switch view. And so for this rule needs to switch our view from login view to actual view that has our actual forms with fields and required data. So on this run these actions selection, click on switch views like before. And you can see login view is selected by default, but for this action, we don't want to keep our user in login view because the user would be authenticated. So we'll want them to switch to view one. And we also need a condition for that. The condition is that the user is verified. So please click on this condition and select insert field or group. And you see this data field is already open and you can see is verified here. So we'll click on is verified and OK. And the condition is that the user should be verified. So the verified attribute needs to be true. So as you can see, I have also included that in here. So the is verified needs to be true. We'll click OK and we'll click done. Let's save the form. Now we'll preview it again. So I open up my Authenticator app in my mobile. I'll enter my email. I've already shown you what happens when the OTP code is not valid, but let's see it again. So I'm entering some random OTP. So the code entered is not valid. Now I'll enter a valid OTP code from my TOTP app. Yeah, sorry, the code seems to be expired.
That shows that you're actually demoing for real.
Yeah. So we can see that our view has switched to our actual main view. And as you can see, our main view is empty. So we're not seeing anything here in here. We're just seeing an empty table. So right now we'll be adding a little bit of content in this view one. So please switch to our default view, which is view one. I have already switched to it. And after switching to it, we'll be adding a calculated value input, object to our header. So let's add a calculated value in here. You should see a box like this. And after adding this calculated value, let's say here, we'll need to enter a formula into it. So let's click on the formula editor. And after this, will be shown this editor again. So for now, what we'll do is click on insert function. So this is also a very new feature that I think Hillary had added to our FormsDesigner, and she'll be going into detail about it later on. So for now, we'll add a new concat function. So press on this insert function button and add a concat function. You can see a function appears like this. And after that, we'll remove text one and insert our email node from XTP logic qauth. So let's remove text one, keep the cursor before the comma, and click on insert field or group. So after that, we'll switch to XTP logic. And after that, I think we need to go into auth. So yeah, we need to go into auth, response, data, and email. We'll go to auth, response, data, and click on this email. Be aware that you don't click on this type, just click on this email and click on OK. After that, we'll remove the text 2 and paste this text in there. Okay, so email successfully logged in at, and we need to give a time as well. So after this last double quote and before this parenthesis, we'll add a comma and insert a new function. So let's click on insert function, and you can see there's a function named today in here. So we'll click insert. So the final formula should look like this, and I've also included that in here. So let's click on OK. Save the form again. And we'll view the form. So I need to log in again in here. So as you can see, after authentication, the email is properly shown as well, and we can show the user our sensitive content that needs to be shown in this view. And remember that it doesn't need to be view one, it can be any view from here. So yeah, that's how we can set up qauth XTP to work with a FormsDesigner and our external forms.
And I love the fact that you showed the Hillary's feature on the custom function stuff. Any questions for Ashish? Hillary?
I'm sorry, I have a question.
Go ahead. Excellent.
On the authenticator, it's branded as Qdabra right now. When we deploy that in production, are we able to brand that for our own site, or will that be branded with our SharePoint, like guest authentication, or how does that work?
Yeah, thanks, Adrian, for joining. I guess were you on yesterday?
I was on yesterday.
Sorry. Yeah. You can definitely change the branding. Do you want to talk about this, Ashish or Hillary?
So yeah, the image in here can be changed to any image you have. So the branding does not really matter in here. So
Do you want to show how to do that? That's a great idea, actually, Ashish.
I can.
Can you go to Taiyuden's site and actually get their brand logo and change it?
Can I get the link, please?
Just type in.
If I can put an attachment in there, I can just drop it in there for you.
Yes, T-Yuden.com. .com. And then just, I don't know, you can tell us which one you want to use, Adrian.
Just the logo in the upper left, probably.
Great question. So while Ashish is doing this, anyone else have any questions? Besides, great question, by the way. Yeah, everything in these forms is dynamic. There's nothing that's hard-coded to Qdabra. We don't really have any kind
Patrick?
of... Yes, sir.
It's Chris. Yeah, this came up the other day with another one of our forms. Was how do we put it in if there's not already a picture there in FormsDesigner? Is that a feature yet?
Yeah, great question. How do we answer it? I think Ashish can actually enter this, but he's doing something else right now, so I can't bug him. But no, I think that this has been added recently. But just hold that thought, and I'm going to ask that after he's done with this demo for Adrian.
So this would be covered in our lab 3 as well, but I'll show it in here. Okay, so for that we need to click on this resource file button and go to add files, and from in here we can add any resource we need. So I think this is the latest screenshot I took, and I'll add it to our FormsDesigner. You can see that I just uploaded that image in here. After doing that, I can just select the field, the image that I want to change. So right now I'm clicking on login, and if you click on this image, you'll see that there's an option for image here. So let's click here and click on the other image that we just uploaded. And you can see that the logo is here, right? So let's click apply. So now what I need to do is just fix the width. Let's say 150. Yeah, that looks good.
I mean, I'd make it bigger than that. I'd make it 350 or 300.
Yeah, but I don't think it would scale, so I just took a screenshot. Okay, it does.
Yeah, so Adrian, does this answer your question?
Yes, thank you.
So Chris's question was, gosh, I just had it there. Chris.
No, that's okay. Chris was asking about, do we yet support just adding an image to our form? And I don't see that yet. Ashish, do you know?
I mean, he
I
just
don't
did
understand the question exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, he changed an existing image. The Q image was already in the form. But can I go and start from scratch and add an image?
Or go to the other view. Go to the other view and try to add the logo.
Yeah, exactly.
That's cool, Ashish. Thanks for showing that.
So that's what's, that's what we're missing, I think, that Chris is mentioning.
So go to this view and add the image.
Yeah, and I don't think we have a control for that.
Can you add the logo now?
No,
I was able to do that
following
the same the steps that we were just shown, resource files, I uploaded a picture and added a picture button.
Okay, you used a picture button.
Right,
I think the
picture
other was the other one a picture button. I don't think it was though. The other one was just a picture.
No.
Right, because see
Okay.
how we've got different properties. So I
Mhm.
get what you're asking, Chris.
He
Yeah.
just added it though. She's just in it.
Yep, a
Yeah, but
picture
it's
button.
more of a button than it is just a logo. So
Oh, that's true. Yeah, it's not a static image. And we shouldn't put Ashish on the spot because he's
Oh no,
like,
not at all. Ashish is just helpfully demonstrating. But Chris, your point is taken, and I'll definitely make sure that we've got that in the list because I see what you're seeing. Yeah.
And this Alex, I have a question about the authentication process itself. Is this form authentication in addition to a existing, let's say if it's a SharePoint Online, SharePoint authentication, meaning that a user first will need to authenticate to
no,
get access into the SharePoint? Okay, so
because it's
no,
for external
right,
users. It's for external users.
for the external user. Then how do you really handle it? It's still based on the SharePoint authentication?
Yes, there's a special mode in SharePoint authentication called the app model, which allows them to sort of circumvent the SharePoint authentication. Now, for Entra ID stuff, which is the new model,
But then does it mean that user need to be added as external user to the Entra ID prior to that?
Nope.
So then
Entra
SharePoint need to
ID,
be an anonymous access?
Well, for Entra ID, for Entra ID, that's an open question, and we should ask Jimmy on day 4, because actually, Hillary, you and Jimmy are going to be presenting this on day 4. So this will be presented on day 4, and we should take a note to address this, Hillary. Can we have users who are completely external use? And I think that this is an open question because we may not have this feature completely done yet. But yeah, Alex, to answer your question, for SharePoint authentication, which has been the situation up until recently, we have this ability to do external authentication for people who are not external users, and we give them the ability to log in, and we have this thing called an app mode for the app, and at the end we can actually specify the app mode by adding certain parameters to the URL, and then they're in app mode, and they can access it even if they're not logged into the site. This has been a feature for Qdabra Forms for many, many years. In fact, we've demoed it in multiple webinars over the years. It's really cool. Microsoft kind of changed this recently with the Entra ID stuff, but in general, it's still going to be supported. It is supported today, and we probably need to demo that in day 4. I don't know if we can do it in day 4 or not for external users. That might not be. We might have to wait until January or February for that, but we're committed to doing that. Right now, the key thing is that the SharePoint app model hasn't completely disappeared for everyone. It's still there. So people can still use it. They're doing a migration to it. And the way to use external users, to authenticate external users in this model is to have this special app mode. We call it FV Anon, forms viewer anonymous equals true. And then you can actually configure it to use OTP, and then you can authenticate the user, right? Using an authentication app. And that's going to be the same case for Entra ID. Hillary, is there any concern you have about this? We haven't talked to Jimmy; he's not on the call. But
Right. Well, Jimmy's mentioned recently again that we aren't supporting anonymous forms, which is what Patrick's talking about is the forms viewer capacity for anonymous forms. We aren't supporting anonymous forms in Entra ID mode yet. He's got work in progress for it. Right now, he anticipates that feature will be ready early January, February. So we will be supporting anonymous forms for
that
Entra
doesn't
ID.
But that doesn't affect the users, right? Because this is just for the new, the future users, right?
Correct. Yeah, this is just if you're using the app in intra ID mode, which we know everyone will have to be using it in intra ID mode by April, whatever, 2026.
So Alex, you're with GDIT, right?
Yeah.
So are you guys using that?
I know GDIT does use the Enter ID. Yes. The reason why I know that because I have ginormous problems of getting access to external resources. Like I'm getting blocked on left and right.
Yeah, well, we got to make this a priority, then, Hillary. So for GDIT, we got to make sure that.
But at this point, it's not a concern for us. I just was kind of curious because we are not on SharePoint Online, and if we the time will come when we'll be ready to migrate to SharePoint Online. I guess that probably won't be. And again, that's still something that we need to decide internally.
When are you going to migrate
under GDIT? Pardon me?
When are you planning to migrate?
When? It's open question.
And it's mainly Q1, before Q2. I'm sorry.
Yeah, perhaps next year, maybe 2026.
Okay, so before Q2 of 2025.
I don't think it's going to happen.
Okay, so he's going to have this implemented before the end of Q2.
So our plan first, our plan first migrate on-prem to subscription, and they cleaned up, convert everything to the modern look, and then start moving slowly to the cloud.
Okay.
But again, for us to move to the cloud, we have to acquire the cloud infrastructure because I don't think on the program where we are, we can't really use GDIT tenant. So it has to be something different. So like I said, it's not just the simple kind of a solution whether you should go to cloud or not, and then like how soon you can go, right? There's a lot of the decisions that need to be made in between.
Yeah, I think the bottom line is that we're going to support external access for you in Enter ID mode as well as existing mode. Enter ID mode is the new mode, and that's just recent as of July, only for customers who are new to SharePoint Tenant Online. And so for all those customers, I think as of August, anyone who joined Microsoft SharePoint Online Tenant new in August would not have the external access because they wouldn't have the previous version. If you were already there, then you'd have the previous version and that wouldn't be an issue. So we'll be whole. We'll have support for Enter ID Azure stuff as of January or February of next year. It's been a little bit of a delay, but we don't have a lot of customers who are just recently moving to SharePoint Online, so that hasn't been a huge issue for us. But yeah, that's actually the number 2 issue right now we have in the company is working on that. So I really appreciate you bringing it up, Alex. Thanks.
We had a couple other questions in chat. I'm wondering, Patrick, Ashish, do you guys mind responding to those? So Benjamin asked about the authentication method assumes the guest has already been provided a login to our SharePoint. Benjamin, I think, Patrick and Ashish can correct me if I'm wrong, I think that this is intended for use when the form is in anonymous mode. Therefore, the user would not have been authenticated to SharePoint. Is that correct, guys?
Ashish, I didn't quite understand what she said.
I'm not sure about that, but the user needs to have been registered with our authentication mechanism, TOTP app. And so we need a mechanism for that.
Hillary, ask that again. Sorry, I'm just trying to do other things at once here.
Sure. Benjamin had asked about whether the authentication was assuming that the person signing in has already been provided a login to their SharePoint. And my response was, well, the form this is meant for use with anonymous forms where they don't have to log into SharePoint.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, so great question, Benjamin. And you guys, I mean, you could use this for people in the field who are filling out forms. And this is a possible new business idea or a opportunity for DESD, because If you have people in the field who do not have access to your SharePoint site and you need them to fill out information, collect information from them, then you could use this, right? So you could use this anonymous mode to collect information from them on their cell phones using Mel's CSS techniques, which we'll talk about more in day 4. We've talked about in multiple webinars over the last few years. So, Qdabra Forms supports mobile responsive UI as well as, as you can have a view that is rendering. Mel showed this kind of yesterday with Central Flows, where she quickly resized the forms, the browser's view. So anybody accessing the forms from their cell phone can use OTP to authenticate, and then you can have them fill out the form, even if they're not authenticated. So if you have people in the field, students, teachers, or whoever, maybe parents who you want to get their information, collect information from them on some important issue, you can definitely do that and not require any kind of authentication other than the OTP stuff, which requires that they log in and register. So OTP, Ashish, correct me if I'm wrong, but they do have to register, right?
Yes, they do have to register for it.
Yeah, and that can be as simple as filling out another form to register and having their data collected, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Or even not even filling out a form. They can just go in and click a link and get the OTP app and install it, right?
Yes.
Okay. Hey, way to go, Ashish. Really appreciate you doing this. I know you got in our lab today, and we're kind of running late here, but awesome job on this first lab. Any other questions for Ashish?
Ashish, Preston is having trouble.
So yeah, it can occur when you have used an invalid or old code. I would suggest you close your OTP app first and then open it up again and try it again. And also please refresh the form.
Thanks, Preston.
So also there was another question about, is this authentication token valid for other forms? So this is time-based OTP. So one token is valid for only one login session. So I might not have understood your question properly.
Yeah, Nima, do you want to comment on that? Nima, are you there? I think you're responding to Nima's question from about 6 minutes ago. So yeah, Nima, feel free to just chat us again. We're going to move to the break here. We don't have a break. We have a break slide. So we're going to take a quick break here, and then we're going to reconvene here in about 10 minutes or 5. Actually, this should be 10. Appreciate your patience with us today and with the training class in general, because this is all new content. You guys are getting all this new great stuff, and we love doing this, and we love having you here. And I think I'd be able to figure out the slides. Okay, so we're going to take a quick break, and then we'll come back in 10 minutes. And in the meantime, if you have any questions or comments, please do chat us. We'll be online. Talk to you soon.
Preston, this is Hillary. I'm going to go ahead and give your form a try and see if I can authenticate in your form so we can at least narrow things down a little bit. Does that sound good to you? I think your form is, well, let me find it. Does it have your first name in it, or?
It has my full name. Yeah.
Okay. I'm finding your D1, L1 and your D1, L2. Do you mind just giving me a link to your form?
Sure.
Let's do that. Yeah, let's make my life easy. Scott, you're so cool. Scott's helping you troubleshoot. Can you still log into the support portal? But let's start with your form and see if I can log into it. Thank you, Scott. All right, cool. Thank you, Preston. I know some others have been able to successfully complete the lab, so this is helpful. And OTP code. Gee, let me go wake up my Authenticator app here. And how did the list of stuff in the Authenticator app get so long? Why are there so many entries? 9, 7, whoops. You never want to hear that, right? Whoops. Okay, I successfully logged in. So I think we can at least say that your form was successful.
Okay,
You are not successful, but your form is successful. So yeah, let me give you the link to the support portal again, and you can verify you can log into that. But it may just be an authenticator setup issue for you, in which case, you know, you and I can take that offline and we'll get that figured out at a later date.
It's weird because I was able to get into it yesterday.
Right, I knew you weren't going to lie. I knew you weren't going to lie to me about that when I asked yesterday if everybody could. So here is the support portal. Yeah, Scott, I appreciated your help too. So yeah, Preston, if you just want to give the support portal a try and see if that works, but I can confirm that you completed your lab, your form does work. So good news. Thank you.
How did you know he wasn't going to lie to you?
He and I go way back. Preston doesn't lie.
Okay. That's right. In fact, life, right?
Yeah. He's
sorry.
never lied to me. He's never lied to me yet. Why would he start today? He's not going to start on a random Wednesday, you know? It's just not his MO.
Wow. Okay. Thanks, Scott. I know how Scott, how you have the ability to help us support other people on the call, but thank you very much for that. Any other questions for this lab? We'll be back in about 5 or 6 minutes, maybe 10. We definitely need more than 10 minutes for this lab because Ashish, I think you took 25. So maybe we should update this like you did Hillary yesterday. So I'm going to do that real quick. I'm going to add here give people more time. We should have done this earlier.
Okay, and if anybody gets stuck, just holler and we'll see if we can get you unstuck.
Thank you.
in case anybody missed it, Chris had a really good point in the team chat, the group chat. He mentioned that the final formula line in step 9, let me see if I can pop this up. When you enter this formula, you're not including the quotes, you're not including the period. So the final formula looks like concat, etc. It just starts with the word concat. I think it's easy to get a little bit confused over what to put in the formula editor when. And what it comes down to is if you're using a function like concat, then that does not need to go into quotes because it's a function. It needs to be processed as a function. But if you're just putting in hello world or kitten caboodle or something like that, hard-coded text, then hard-coded text, it does go into quotes. And in fact, if we look at this, because let's make everything a teaching moment. If we look at this in its entirety, you can see that the concat is the beginning of our function. So that would not need quotes around it. XCX document, get DOM, etc. That's our field picker. We've got a comma, and then we've got some quotes indicating some hard-coded text, successfully logged in at, close quotes. That's the end of that string. Then there's a comma, and here's another function, the today function. So thanks, Chris, for pointing that out, and hopefully that will help anybody else who might be having a little bit of confusion on that step.
Thanks, Hillary. It's great to hear Evan and Benjamin chime in with the spaces. They're obviously very far in the lab, which is awesome. I'm thinking I'm going to log out here. It's 1:41 a.m. here, Japan time. And I appreciate everyone's continued persistence on this day 2 training. I think you're in good hands. Hillary's going to do next lab. And then we have Ashish again for lab 3, which is going to be short. So Hillary's lab is going to be significant, connecting to DBCell. And then Ashish is going to have another short lab after that. And then Hillary will have a bonus lab after that. And Hillary, I don't know where we're at in terms of time. I guess we're kind of a little bit over right now. I'm just guessing. So we probably need to speed things up a bit.
Okay, we'll do mine on warp speed. I bet everybody's looking forward to that. No, we'll get through this. Yeah.
We've had issues with your lab. Don't forget, we've had testing issues with it, which you've remedied for sure. But we should go through your lab slowly and then do warp speed after that.
Okay.
Your lab is important. Your lab's important.
So Ashish, your third lab's going to be warp speed, and the demo's going to be warp speed.
Or you'll just go over. Yeah, and thanks Ashish for being here. I mean, or you just go over and people can leave if they need to, right?
Sure.
No big deal.
Sure.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Sorry, everyone. I'm going to log out here again today, but any questions for me before I leave? Thanks, Benjamin and Evan, for your feedback here. And thank everyone else for being here today. Really happy to have you. Tomorrow's going to be a huge day as well. Today is all about FormsDesigner. Tomorrow's going to be about AI stuff. So good luck getting to the labs. You don't have to finish them today. You can wait. January 15th is the deadline. And we will support you all through that process if you got issues. So, yeah.
Thanks,
Take care.
Patrick.
Thanks,
Go
Hillary.
get some rest, and we'll talk to you tomorrow.
Appreciate you. Take care.
Yeah.
Ciao.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
All right, we're gonna pick this back up in about a minute, so we'll get moving again here shortly. All right, we're going to get back at it. Really appreciated everyone who chatted little fixes, little issues in the chat as they were working through the lab. That's fantastic that we're able to help each other kind of work through it. As Patrick mentioned earlier, my lab is going to be on DBXL. And DBXL uses SOAP data connections. And I'd like to mention first that Sweta, who did Lab 2 yesterday, did the heavy lifting in FormsDesigner to add this capacity for SOAP data connections. And I really appreciate the work she put into that. Ashish talked briefly about XTPs and why they're valuable to us, what we like to use those for, and the reason that they make form design easier. And XTPs come into play here too. In FormsDesigner, we have a DBXL XTP that makes it so easy for you to add a DBXL submit to your form. DBXL Web Services let us get our data into and out of SQL Server. If you've ever had a form with a repeating group or section, which you probably have, you promote properties to the library, but you really can't report easily on that data. So being able to unlock the data in your complex structures, in your repeating structures, and get that into SQL is huge. Being able to query for just the data you need from SQL is huge. And DBXL makes this easy. The DBXL XTP makes that even easier. Here is our antiquated DBXL Web Services slide that we've been putting in webinars and training and presentation forever. It talks about SharePoint, but your forms can be in other places. But if you also submit your form to DBXL, then we can take that data, we can go put it into SQL. And I think we all know the value of having our data in a database instead of just in SharePoint. Now you can build your Power BI easily off of it and so forth. So today we are going to leverage our DBXL XTP. We're also going to set up a DBXL data connection, and DBXL uses SOAP, which we've just added that capacity to FormsDesigner to let you add these types of connections. We're going to use the Query Builder tool in the DBXL administrative tool to create a dynamic query so you can get just the data you need when you need it. So I'm going to pop up my lab on the screen I'm not sharing. And on this one, I'm going to hopefully get back to, oh no, I'm nowhere. I don't know where I am. Let me show my taskbar here so I can figure it out. There we go. Here I'm going to get back to training. Now yesterday I know we ended up needing the DBXL login information when you were setting up some things for your central flows. So that same information you'll need today. It's right here in this day 2 folder, just to clarify that for you. So to get started on this lab, first off, I want to show you some of the end result. I am going to need to end this slideshow though, because I keep ending up with no taskbar that I can find. So here we go. I've got 2 tables in SQL. So here's my SQL server. Here's my training database that I'm using. I've added daily feedback and survey responses. So you guys have been working on this survey form. It has a daily feedback section. I have a DBXL document type already set up that saves data to these 2 tables. I will clear out some of this test data before we get too deep into this lab, but you can see here that we've got some data already submitted, and this is my parent data, you know, forms created, form use time, class expectations, location, and here's my repeating section data. So I've got this all configured in DBXL, and when we have our completed form with my very excellent test data, and we submit, then this will go ahead and submit our data to DBXL, and DBXL will get it into our SQL server for us. Hit execute here, and you can see there's my new row. And if I hit execute over here, I didn't put in a rating, so it's not going to be any good getting back an average, but it gives you an idea of how easy it is to get data into SQL. So I'm going to go ahead and start walking through the lab. One of the things I highlight in the lab that I want to mention to you is that one problem I think we've all run into before is the need to query data, and we accidentally or without thinking query more data than we need. For example, we set up a data connection that queries on loud, or we get more columns than we need in our data connection, or we don't have a way to get just the things that apply to this specific circumstance, so we query all the data and we use an XPath filter. And I think that one of the best things we can do to improve the performance of our forms is get only the data we need only when we need it. And if you can kind of keep those principles in mind when you're designing, then you don't end up in these situations that your form was great when you first made it. Your form was fabulous. And now there's 5,000 rows in that list you're querying, and you're querying back all that data every time the form opens. And, you know, your users are bothering you all the time, right? Because they're just like, why is this form so slow? So if you put data load first in your mind, I'm helpfully like waving my hands around a lot while I'm talking to you. But if you put data load first in your mind, then you don't have to worry about later on your form becoming a burden to your users, because the data load increases because we've submitted a bunch of stuff and we're querying the library, and now we've got all that data in our form. DBXL comes in because it makes it easy for you to get back just the data you need when you need it. I'm starting with a starter form. I did put that in our lab 2 folder. However, you can just start with your day 1 lab 2 form as well if you'd like. So what we'll do is we'll pop open our form, and you can see here's my simple survey form. We're going to add the DBXL data connections XTP. There's a couple things here when we add this. DBXL data connections XTP, we click the plus. Now it comes in with some instructions. This little typo, forgive me for that. I didn't notice that when I was making some other changes to the instructions, but you don't need to worry about this whole section. So please disregard this entire section. for this purposes of this lab. Almel showed you environment variables yesterday. We already have environment variables set up for you, so you don't need to worry about that section. If you're using the day 1 lab 2 form, you will already have Q rules. If you don't know if you have Q rules, you can click on the Q rules button, and it looks like I also have Q rules added to my starter form. So you don't need to worry about this section. And this one, we do need to set up. We need to wire up our Qdabra rules logic. So you'll see this in a lot of the XTPs. We've got like this Q rules temp section. We hit rules, and I need to, this little guy, there we go. We hit rules, and right now we're just setting stop. That's a placeholder field. Instead, we need to set the command field to the value of this temp command. We've even got a note here for you, change fields. And this one, the temp result, we're changing this to the Qdabra rules result field. The reason for this is that the XTP can't have Q rules in it because the data connection name gets changed when we add an XTP. So this is just an approach we came up with years ago for these XTPs that use Q rules, and it's stayed. We've just kept this same approach as we've added things to FormsDesigner. So I need to change this to the actual result field. So you can see we're setting the temp results to the actual Qdabra rules result. We're setting the Qdabra rules command to this particular field. So we'll click done here. Okay, so this is, we've taken care of step 3 because I can't follow instructions. And now we'll do step 2. Go to Qdabra rules, finish loading, rules plus load dbxl xtp, right? And we're just going to set a field's value. And this is again just some logic that we've got in the XTP that's going to run when we call this. We'll just set this to the value of go. So here's kind of what I was talking about briefly when we were looking at Chris's point about the quotes around that concat statement. So if you're using just if you're using a function in here, maybe even a function that combines with hard-coded text, your text goes inside quote marks. If you are, but your function does not, if you are just entering a value, like for example, go, then it needs to go inside quote marks to indicate that it's just a string. Okay, so we do that. And then scrolling down, we are going to need to take care of this step. In the lab, I put quotes around, oops, let me find it. There we go. In the lab, I put quotes around it to make it clear, but this is a hard-coded value of training survey. So we're going to put that in quotes, okay? And Alexander, I note your question, that it is surprising to see SOAP connections being added when people are moving to REST. I will mention, however, that DBXL has been using SOAP, and therefore we wanted to be able to support our own product here. We do recognize that the move to REST is part of our future for DBXL. So to do this rule, though, we're going to modify the DBXL submit values. And let's go here and actions. And here's our submit rules. So this one is the other rule you'll change. You see it says your doc type here. Instead, this needs to say training survey, again, in quotes. And this is the name of our document type, training survey. I think you did something similar when you worked on the Central Flows lab. You created your own document type and you had to set a document type. So that is all of the XTP configuration that you'll have to do. You can remove these instructions when you're done. You can leave them if you feel like you might need them. You can also always see the instructions again with this little blue button here. You can close those instructions that way. So now we have set up our initial DBXL XTP. We've got our DBXL submit configured. The next thing we're going to do is we're going to add a username field, just username like so. And then in our finished loading logic, we're going to set that value. So I'll just do plus set user name, and we'll set a field's value. And the field is the one we just added here in our main data source. Let me say, okay, I'm going to use a function for this. I'm going to take those quotes right out. I'm going to insert a function, and here's my username function. And I only want to do this if it's blank, right? So that's one problem I see in forms all the time. People unintentionally are overwriting a username when they don't mean to because they just set it every single time the form opens. So we'll just add a quick condition here. I only want to do this if the username is blank. So that would be space equals and quotes. Okay, so we're just checking to see that if it's blank, we're going to set it. All right, so that's all taken care of. So we've got that added. The next thing we're going to do is we're going to configure our DBXL submit. We set up the document type. We need to add a submit button. If your form already has a submit button because you're using your day 1 lab 2, you can just add this rule there. And let's just add a rule, action rule. It's DBXL, and we're going to set a value. There it is. And this is in, again, our XTP logic in the actions. We're just going to set that to go. Okay, so now our form is all set up to submit to DBXL. So that was pretty simple. Getting it set up to submit to DBXL is pretty simple. We do have to have a document type in DBXL, and I've got one set up for this already. This is the training survey document type, so that matches the text we put in earlier. Okay, so that gives us our training survey document type. Now we need to add our data connection. And so our data connection is going to be added in FormsDesigner, and we're going to need some information from Query Builder here in order to do that. So what I think we'll do next is we'll just go ahead and go to the Query Builder in the training survey, and the link to this is in your lab. You'll click on that, you'll come here, you'll create a new query. You know, again, as we've been having you do, name things with your initials or what have you. We're going to be querying a SQL database, and it's aliased. So all we have to do here is enter training, click done, refresh our database schema. So we're going to select a view here. The view we're going to use is one I pre-created with the average class rating. So we'll select that. We'll insert columns. I think I have you do 3 columns. So average rating, scrolling, average rating, forms created, and location. Okay, so here we've got our view that we're going to use. We've added our columns. We're going to add a filter. So the filter allows us to indicate what data we want back. This comes back to the point I made at the beginning about querying only for the data you need when you need it. If we don't add a filter to our query, we'll get back all the data from view average class rating. And that's no big deal right now. There's 20 of us or whatever. But in 5 years, when there's 8,000 rows, then that might become a problem. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to filter this. We want to click Insert Comparison. And the column name we're going to compare on is username. We're going to have you query just for your data in this query. And here we can use either a SQL field, database column, or we can use a field from the form. So I'm going to use a field from the form, which is that username field that we just added. So I click that, and this is in a slightly different order, but it's got the same XPath, so it's fine. And that is all we're going to set up at this point. We'll click Build Now to build our query strings. So our query strings are Benjamin, I'll come back to your issue here in a second, because I'm not sure I understand it, but we'll get back to it. So our query strings are what we are passing to the web service in order to get back our data. This is like a sample one that we'll use to create our data connection. This one down here you can see has a concat formula, and it has our filter in it where we are passing in a filter of username equals this field. So that's what we're going to use when we actually run our rule to run our query. So I'm going to start by copying that, and I'll pop back over here. I'm going to add a new data connection. This is SOAP. I'm going to call it average rating. Add my service URL I have over here. Oh, and this is also in the training information. It says QueryDB URL used for service URL in the QueryDB connection. So you'll find it here in the DBXL login text that we've provided. Just scooch that back over. So that's our QueryDB user service. So we're going to query and then get columns XML, wrong one, get columns XML str query. We have to enter a key and our query XML. So I copied the query XML, and that's not that one. Let me get the right thing. Right there. And then I'll have to also paste this key in. And add connection. Okay. And so now I've got my new data connection here. I'll go ahead and close that, click done, verify. Here's my new data connection. You can see I've got here's my data down there. I'm going to hit save on this. Okay, so that got me my data connection set up. Now, the one thing I forgot to do, which it's funny because this is the thing Patrick was talking about this morning, be sure you deselect query during form load. I actually highlighted that step in the lab in red too, because otherwise you're going to have trouble when you open your form. We don't want this to query when the form loads. So deselect that and click apply changes. I get to do this again. So don't be like me and do it the first time for sure. One more second. Whoop. Well, I'm really determined to do that wrong. Let me go find it. Okay. All right. And now I'm going to save again. Okay, let's just save one more time. Okay, so we've got our query set up. Be sure that you don't miss that step to deselect the query form during load option, which I have helpfully made bright red here and still missed as I went through it. So I'm not at all surprised that it got missed during testing. Okay, so we've got our query all set up. Now, the next thing I want to do is I want to use my filtered query when I actually go and get my average. So I'm going to insert a row below. I'm going to insert a couple, and I want one more. I like lots of space. And I'm going to add another button here, and I'm going to call this button get my average. Average. Okay. And I need to set my query XML field to the value that I have in my query builder query, which it's hiding from me now. There we go. I need this one. I need the formula this time. So let me copy this. Come back over here. Okay, so the query XML is going here, and then we execute the query in order to have DBXL act on the information provided to it. Okay, so under get my average, I'm going to add a rule, and I'll call it, I don't know, get my average. I think I put in rule names for you guys, but obviously the name of the rule doesn't really matter that much. And we're going to set a field's value. The field is this query XML field. Boom. And I'm going to use this function. Okay. So here we've got this function, and like we were just talking about, I just pasted this directly from the query builder. That's what the query builder tool is to make these queries easier for you. But like we talked about, concat is a function, so we don't have any quotes outside of it. It's followed by parentheses with its arguments inside of the parentheses. The first argument is this string that you can see ends right here. So this is the end of our first string argument. Then there's a comma. This is a field from our data source. This is my username field, right? And I'm passing that into the filter. XML is human readable. Isn't that great? So we're saying here, we're saying filter this data. We want the username column to be equal to the value of the username field in my form. Okay, and then you can see we've got a third string argument here when those quotes begin, again, and end. I'll go ahead and say okay. One thing you might note is if you used your day 1 lab 2 form, the namespace prefix might be different. Don't worry about it. It's just important to set that query XML. Then the next thing we need to do is we need to add another action to query for data. And we're going to query for that average rating data connection. So that takes care of our rule to get our average data. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to add a repeating section here bound to the rows so that I can take a look at the data that's returned. So we add a repeating section, and then in that section, I'm just going to add some places for controls. I'm going to spell everything right because, you know, I can't bear a typo. So for my average, I'm just going to make these all text boxes, which is fine. Done. And then forms created, text box, and location. Text box, location, done. Okay, so I'm going to save this. Now I've submitted one when we were doing our little test, and that is fine, but I'm going to go delete that one and then submit another one here while I'm testing. So let me go back to the administrative tool. All right, wow. I'm going everywhere but, aren't I? I was trying to avoid my little Teams widget there at the top, which makes everything so much fun. All right, so I'll go to the documents here. When you're working, go ahead and feel free to save your query. I've already saved a couple of these, so I'm not going to bother saving mine, but it's nice sometimes to have in case you need to come back to it. So I need to have a little chat with the Teams people about this. This bar always being over everything. Okay, so this is the test form that I submitted last. So I'll go ahead and delete that. And I'll delete the rest of the test forms at some point before you guys start submitting. Okay, so now my data should be, my most recent data should be gone. This one. And it is. My old one is there, but that's okay because I hard coded those with oddball names. So when I test my form, when I first click get my average, you would expect nothing, which is what I'm getting, nothing. So let's fill this out. We're guessing. Well, I was going to guess a bigger number than that, but I apparently have to turn my keyboard back on for that. Okay, how long have I been using Qdabra Forms? I don't know. Probably not. I don't think it's been around that long. We'll call it 10 years. Will I be able to attend all 4 days? Yes. Where am I located, guys? I live in a town called Adams, Oregon, USA. It's a big town of 320 people or something like that. I know the original form that you guys created on day 1 lab 2 had probably a drop down for day number. I cheated on mine and it's got a default value. And I think the ratings are 1 to 5 and I've got ratings of up to 10. So that's going to skew everything. And H3. And we'll call this one F. Or I don't know why I'm picking these random numbers. And we'll call this one H4. Okay, so let's make sure my submit works. And I've got my little dots going across there, which is indicative to me that something's happening. I'll go check SQL again. SQL's telling me that, yep, my data submitted. And then of course I can click get my average to get back just my average. And so the average of 3 and 4 is 3.5. This is just a little SQL magic. That's just what I did on the SQL side for the view. And there's my location. So as you can see, I can submit data to and get data back from SQL pretty quickly and easily. I added a little bonus to return the class average in the lab. So we'll just do one more button here. And for that one, I included the query XML in your lab. So I'll do get. And I'm going to spoil Ashish's surprise here because if anybody who's worked with me knows I am ridiculously lazy. So I'm going to go ahead and use the copy rules functionality and paste that rule because I didn't want to redo it. Get class average, and I'm going to change this query XML to what I've got in the lab. This time it's going to be a string, and I did not put quotes around it in the lab. So let me show you. This is a hard-coded string. It's not a function. It doesn't have any passed-in values or functions in it. So that's going to need to go inside quote marks here. So it's going to be quote. And let me get that at the end there. So that's what that's going to look like. Sorry about that. And maybe I'll make a note of that in the chat as well. So I'll say, okay, so this should get me my class average. I'm using the same data connection. I'm just changing the query that I'm passing to it. I'm using a different table name, average total class rating. And I just set up that view to return the same columns as the other one. So I'm going to do a save. I'm going to do an open. And this time I'm going to hit get class average. Now this average, like I said, I saw that your form from before was set to a rating of up to 5, and I think I set the rating of up to 10. So this average is a little skewed, but this should give you the overall idea of using QueryDB, using the DBXL XTP, and some of the value you can get from using DBXL and using SQL. I want you guys to be able to get started on the lab. The document type, I put a link in those in the lab for you. But if you just start from this link in DBXL, that will get you to the right document type. Benjamin, do you want to tell me more about the problem you're having?
Yeah, so when I'm in the DBXL admin tool, and maybe I missed something, you were kind of going fast when you were in that section. I can select catalog, but that doc type option at the top, it doesn't let me select that at all.
Now, if you click on the link that I gave you, it should already show as highlighted. So when we start at the catalog and we select a doc type, then doc type shows up as highlighted. So what happens is once we've opened a document type, like I've got training survey opened, then doc type shows as highlighted, but it's not that you need to click doc type. And the reason I included a link in the training and just now into chat to take you directly to this document type was because there's so many in here. So I just wanted to make it a little easier to find.
I see. So I don't need to select doc type. I just need to
click the link.
Okay, gotcha. Thank you.
Click the link in the chat. Click the link in the lab. I need you to click the link. Guys, was I going too fast? Is there something you need me to show you again or show you more of before you get started on the lab? Okay. I know I have a tendency to get rolling and get excited, and I know I have a tendency to go too fast. So you do not hurt my feelings if you stop me and say you are going too fast, or I need more help, or so on. So please let me know if I've lost you, if I've caused you to lose the plot or anything like that. So I would like you to have some time to complete this lab. Ashisha's lab should be I think he'd mentioned was going to be pretty straightforward, and I already cheated and showed you part of it. So what does everybody think to about 30 minutes? Does about 30 minutes sound good for lab work and maybe a break? Okay, Allie, did you have a question, or was that a yes, 30 minutes is great?
That was supposed to be a yes, 30 minutes is great.
Oh,
Didn't mean to
fantastic.
raise
You
my
know me.
hand.
You know me, I like to have extra confirmation. I'll put your hand down. Okay. All right, so let's do 30 minutes. We're gonna call it an even number so that my eye doesn't twitch. So we're gonna say 9:40 a.m. I'll pop a break slide in and put that in there. We'll regroup at 9:40. That gives Ashish time to go through his last demo, and you guys time to do lab work. Please speak up if you need help or get stuck, and we will regroup at 9:40.
9:40 is only 20 minutes.
You're right, I'm a liar. I said a half an hour, so you can 9:50.
How
we
about
will
let's make
regroup
it
at
10?
9:50. Thank you, Irina. I'm gonna do this. I'm gonna do labs and break. Do you guys want to wait until 10? Do you guys want to wait until 10 to regroup? Is that better for everyone? Or do you guys
Yes,
think?
yes,
Oh, yes.
yes, please.
Irina says, okay, we're gonna be back at 10
10.
a.m. Pacific. And we'll call that that's 40 minutes, you guys. Okay. All right.
Thank you.
You bet.
Hillary, I actually do have another question already. I'm sorry.
No.
So I'm looking at the rules for the set values for the DBXL submit, and in here it says to set that doc type to required, but I'm not.
No, oh no, I understand. I understand the confusion. I am sorry about that. So let's go back over and take a look at those real quick. Uh, have you guys picked up yet that PowerPoint just is not my jam? Okay, so now I'm out of there. Okay, so when we add the XTP in the directions, it has that little bit about doc type required. So what this is saying is that if you want this to submit to DBXL, you will have to enter a doc type. Okay, but what we actually enter for the doc type, let me take you back to the lab. She says confusedly, back to the lab. What we actually enter for the document type is training survey. So the directions are saying the doc type is required. The value we're going to enter is training survey. So we go
I
here.
see. Okay,
We
thank
go
you.
to submit. Oh, no, it's okay. It's the same thing as the question we had from Bob on instructions. You know, he's like, I'm supposed to follow these, you know, but we meant instructions differently. But yeah, so all this is indicating is, look, you got to fill this out, right, for it to work. And so, yeah, just put in training survey. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. I got it. Thank you.
Okay, perfect, perfect. Just so everyone knows, I'm going to step away for just about 5 minutes and I will be right back. So if you have any questions, I'll be happy to answer them when I get back. So I'll just be gone for a few.
Does anyone know where to get the service URL for the SOAP web service connection? I'm not finding that.
It's in the same document that has the training user name and password. The text file that she sent.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Did I miss anything? I see some comments in chat. Everybody was able to find the URL. It looks like Nima chatted it.
Yeah, I just didn't read far enough into the instructions and couldn't find it.
That's fine. You're fine. Okay, great. Thank you.
I'm confused about step 6 on the
Okay.
Somebody share.
Yep, please.
Okay.
And let me in my slideshow here. Yeah, why don't you show out and show me where you're stuck.
Right here. If your form has a non-user key.
Oh, you don't need to worry about those steps. So you didn't need to worry about step 5 or step 6.
Okay. Well,
sorry, I mentioned it in the demo, but I should have put it in the lab, right? I should have put it in the lab, so it's not on you.
Okay. Well, that explains why I have no idea what that means. Okay. Thank you.
Okay, let me explain what it means in case anybody would like to know. So those instructions are to help you if you are using QueryDB, but not the user key version. So we've got some logic in the DBXL XTP. For those of you who've been using DBXL for a while, you might have some older forms that aren't using the with user key version, and this allows you to quickly convert them without walking through the data connections. But Josh, good point. I should have mentioned in the lab that those steps don't apply because it is confusing. Thank you for pointing that out.
Thanks, Hillary.
And Evan, you're getting an error. Evan, did you, when you created your... Wait, Evan, do you want to paste in a link to your form? I know you've got a cold, so you probably aren't feeling like chatting, but if you want to paste in a link to your form, let me take a quick look. I had an initial guess, but I don't want to guess. Okay. Okay, there's the link to Evan's form. Okay, and so data connections, let's make sure our average rating is not querying on form load. It's not. And let us, we've got the DBXL XTP added. So we should not be having a problem. Run unload DBXL. Go. That all looks good. Well, let's just debug it. And gonna hit inspect, gonna check the network tab. And when you run your query, get my average, access denied. Interesting. So what have we got going on here? I'm just going to double check your data connection.
I wonder if it has something to do with the username, that it's an external.
No, because we're using QueryDB with user key, but I would expect there would be a key set here because I've got environment variables set up for the key. Let's make sure nothing untoward happened to the key. Yeah, so everything seems fine there. So let's just go figure out what's going on with yours. And XTP logic, I think I'm still in yours. I'm like, let's make sure I'm on the right form. And onload rules. Oh, you know what I bet? Rules. There we go. Because sometimes this is where this is the mistake I make the most is I forget to actually wire up the Q rules situation. But actually here there was just a little confusion. We don't change that to the result. We change this one. This one should be the temp command. So what happens in the XTP is we're setting the temp command and then that runs the Q rules command. And then this one we change to the result field from Q rules. It's easy to mix these up, and especially if you haven't used this thing before. So let's hit save and let's see where we're at now. So what was happening was the key value wasn't getting set, so we weren't authenticated. All right, so now we've got a different problem. Query XML, invalid parameter query XML. So let's go see what that problem is. rules, get my average, get average rating. We are setting, oh, okay. So this data connection, this QueryDB with user key, that is a generic data connection. And I can see why that would have gotten confusing too. Instead, we want to set the query XML in the average rating data connection that we created.
Oh, okay.
Makes sense. And so we're setting that query XML, and you were querying the right data connection. It was just the wrong query XML that was being set. And so now let's hit save and let's check it one more time. And hopefully, yay, so this was my average, but you're back in business. Yeah, you were really close. It was just a couple of little things there, and I can completely see the confusion on both of those. So yeah, good job. You're in good shape now. Thank you.
Right.
Anybody else having any troubles? Okay. Go back to sharing my painful slide here.
Hillary, I have a question. I'm at the section where I'm in, so I just bound the, I just added the repeating section for the get my average, and I'm at the part where it says add controls inside the repeating section for each of the fields in the group. You can use text or calculated value controls. What I'm not sure what that's supposed to mean.
Sure, absolutely. So what I mean is, and you can see my screen okay?
1 second. Yeah.
Okay, so what I mean is here's my repeating section that I added, right? And so inside the repeating section, you can see inside of row here, we've got we've got these 3 fields that we returned. And so what I mean here is let's just add some controls that will show the data. I've gotten so lazy now. I'm just typing initials, right? but here's some little labels that I'm going to use for my data controls. And so you could use either a text box if you liked, or you could use a calculated value if you liked. And all I'm suggesting is that we add some controls that are bound to these fields so we can see this data. So we'll do text box, and I'll select average rating, and done. And there's my average rating, right? And so forth. So it's just so you can see the data, and you're not familiar with calculated values. So that was probably confusing too. If you use a calculated value, then you end up, going about it slightly differently, but that's also an option there, just to use calculated values. So yeah, up to you which one you want to use.
I guess I was confused by the terminology of controls. You're just talking about like a visual way of confirming the data.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
We just want to make sure that you can see that your data is getting returned.
I see. Okay.
And you wouldn't be able to, I mean, we've got ways, right? We could look at the network tab in the browser, but you wouldn't be able to see that if we didn't, put something on there that would let us see it, right?
Gotcha. Okay, thank you.
You bet. Anybody else? Does anybody else have a little sticking place or something in the instructions that are less clear? Because I am more than happy to help with this.
Yeah, in the query building portion, in the query, I'll go and share. In the query filter here, I'm not getting the username as an option in here.
Oh, okay. Yeah, you won't because, oh, I'm sorry. You should. Oh, because you selected the wrong view up there. The table name, you've got view average total class rating. We actually want to use the view average class rating. So change that to view average class rating. You were
Just
so
up the
close.
curve.
And that was, you know, and part of that too was I decided, so I did this part of the lab and then I thought, oh, it would be so much fun for them to be able to see the entire class rating. So then I added that additional view and I gave it a very similar
Okay.
name, and it didn't occur to me that it might cause confusion. So I'm sorry for that, but
Oh,
yeah,
that's
you've
just
got it
not
right
me reading
now.
completely. Okay.
Oh,
Cool.
you're
Thank
doing
you.
great. You guys are doing great. Okay, awesome. Anybody else? Can I help anybody else right now? You guys are just all just rock stars and you're getting through it. No problem. Okay, well, I'm going to try to share my PowerPoint slide again and we'll see how I do with that. I'm sure I'll make a mess of it.
Hi, Hillary. Sorry, I have another question.
There is absolutely no need to apologize. What's up?
So I am adding the rule for the query to class average, and there's this because I went to the DBXL admin tool and grabbed the query XML for that section. And I'm noticing that there's a string.format function in front of that in this code here, but then in the actual document, the training document, it does not have that function in front of it. So I'm wondering if I was not supposed to grab that from the DBXL side.
Right. So the whoops, I'm just going to go to the wrong everything. Let me just keep going to the wrong thing here. Let me find my lab again. We'll just open it up for the 14th time. I'm sure I've got this open so many places. So you're on the query class average portion.
Yes.
The last one. So
Yeah.
what I did for this one, instead of having you copy it, I actually included the text right there because we're using a different table and we're not using any kind of a filter. We're using that different view, the view average total class rating. And for that one, you'll need to be sure that when you add it, rules, you put quotation marks around it because this is actually a hard-coded string. Okay, so you can see it looks like that, and you can actually copy that one directly from the lab. But you bring up a good point, and that is, what are all of these different query strings about? Okay, and so it's if you're interested in it, you can go back and check the lab. There's a little note there, but there's these different query strings. This one down here at the bottom most that starts with string format, that's the one you're talking about. That's used in form code, and honestly, we don't really because FormsDesigner doesn't really support custom code outside of JavaScript. It's really kind of an artifact at this point. But when DBXL was created, people frequently were writing C# and VB code for the Visual Basic Code for their forms. They were writing actual code for it, and this was intended to make it easier if you wanted to set your query XML in actual written form code. So that's what this one is for. This one, the query XML to be used in the form rules. This is, if it's got any filter or anything like that, it will include that in it. The XML to be used as a sample value in the data connection wizard. You can see it's got a max rows equals 2. That's to only query for a couple rows, just enough to create the sample data connection.
Gotcha. Thank you. So if, like, as a hypothetical, if I did use that with that string.format, it would not work, or?
It would not work.
Okay.
Absolutely. It would absolutely 100% not work.
Good to know. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. And if you wanted to have used a query builder to create that other query, it would have looked pretty much like this. View average, I used the average total class rating view there. It wouldn't have had a filter. You could click build now, and you'll see in that case where we don't have a filter, the query XML to be used in the form rules looks exactly like the sample value, except for, it's missing the indicators that we only want sample data. So when we create a data connection in a form, in order to generate, you're so glad you signed up for the lecture series, right? When we create a data connection in a form, one part of what happens when we're creating that is the form actually has to query the data connection so it knows what the structure is of the data it's getting back. So like in the case of our average rating data connection here, when we added that data connection, the form queried our data source based on the URL we used, the key we used, and the method we indicated in our data connection wizard. And then it said, oh, this is the data I got back, and this is the structure of it. And that's when the form builds up this internal knowledge, this schema of what this secondary data connection looks like. And so because the form is going to query for data as part of creating its data connection, if the data source you are querying is very large, you could end up waiting a while for that query to get created. I mean, it's a minor thing, but it can be a bit tedious. And that's why we've got those sample values that include max rows equals 2 for QueryDB. And that way, when your form queries your SQL database to generate this schema to figure out what fields are included and so forth, it only queries for 2 rows, and that makes it a little bit faster. So more than anybody probably wanted to know. Anybody else have a question? Everybody else doing okay?
I do have a question because
I'm glad.
I am able to get the class average, but I'm not able to get my own average.
Do you want to share out, or do you just want me to go to your form?
Yes,
Which would you prefer?
I am trying to share out.
Okay, I will stop. You will start. Okay.
Okay.
And so you've got set username. So that's happening correctly, and that's running in your Qdabra rules finish loading. Okay, and then the rules on your get my average button. And you're setting query XML. You're setting your query XML. So let's click on that. Let's click on our formulator. Okay.
I copied this from the admin.
Query builder. Okay. And then can you double check? Let's double check the field you're setting. Perfect. Okay. And then you're querying for data. And it's, oh, have you submitted a form yet?
Yes, I did.
Okay. Let me go double check the database, which you can't
I have that
do.
same problem also.
Okay. Yeah, okay. I don't think your form submitted. So I don't see other people's forms submitting either. So let's look at your submit button. Okay, you're doing that. All right, now let's go look at your XTP rules. So let's do done here. And let's go expand our XTP logic, and let's go look at our submit action. Submit. Okay, and what are your rules there? And we're on set values for DBXL submit is the one we care about. And you are setting your doc type to training survey. So that all looks good. Let's go double check your Qdabra rules configuration. So let's click done here and expand that. Whoops, stay where you're at. That's okay. Expand the Q rules temp. I remember this from working with you before, your quick clicker. And let's click on temp command and let's look at the rules there. You are a quick clicker. Okay, so that all looks right. All right, so let's go figure out what's wrong. You've got it open, so refresh the one you've got open. Oh, I probably should have made you refresh it. Now you've got to fill it out again. I'm so
that's
rude.
fine.
Okay, yeah, just type some stuff in there.
And then we'll put some feedback.
Yeah, and before you click submit, I'm going to have you right click here on your form, click inspect, all the way down. You'll keep going down, down, down. Yeah. And on the right hand side at the top, it says elements, console, sources. I want you to click on network. And now we're going to click our submit button.
Okay.
Okay, and you have to scroll back over to the, which hand works which way? Left. You'll have to scroll to, I see a network call, but I don't see the name. Maybe where your cursor is, go down a little bit, that section that says console, what's new AI assistance. At the far right, there's an X on that. All the way to the right. All right.
Okay.
There we go. Let's click on that guy, call SOAP service. So that's our SOAP service call. And let's look at the response. So you've got headers, payload, preview, response. And let's just scroll to the right a little bit. Gently, and a little bit further. Success, blah, 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 errors, blah, blah, blah. Error info, code, description, and error occurred saving form data to the database. One of the form's values was too large or could not be converted to the correct data type to be stored in the database. As a result, the data has not been shredded to the database. Okay, so everybody's documents, this is awesome. This is great because this is helpful to me. So let me share out my screen. And now we get a debugging lesson in DBXL. Thank you, Ellie.
You're welcome.
You're cool. I appreciate it. So what we learned, what just happened, let me share. So what happened, that error message that we got back, what that tells us is that the document got submitted successfully, but that we've got a little database data type issue. So I did not show you guys our database mapping. Here's our database mapping, and this is where we've got our tables of survey responses and daily feedback mapped. And you can see we've got some data types here. So I'm wondering which of these is causing the problem. So I'm going to refresh all, and let's just take a look at all of our documents here, because it could be everybody's submitting just fine. While that loads, I'll show you. You can also, when you're using the DBXL XTP, you can leverage that node to determine whether or not it's been successful, or you can check your Qdabra rules execution history, which is also right here. You can see we've got something called execution history, and in there is a repeating group, and it'll show you every qrules command ever run in the form session with some information. So let's get back over here to where we can see our documents. So I can see people have been submitting. right? This one and as was yours, right? And so I can see we've been submitting. We're just not getting data into our database. So now we need to determine why. So I've got it open here. What do we think? We've got 11. What else do we have? Can attend all is false. Locations 11. Oh, that's mine. Huh. Nice. I'm not. Sorry. The Teams bar is making me feel very angry. Forms created, we've got 4. Can attend all is blank. I wouldn't think that would be causing our problem. I can reshred one of these, but it's not going to give me much information. Oh, one of the forms values was too large or could not be converted to the correct data type. So that's the same message we got before. And I think what I'll do is go change a data type here and see if that helps me at all. I don't think it's the database. Okay, you had a number for day number. We had a number for rating. Day number. We have a number for rating. That's fine. The username. It's these usernames. I bet you anything. It never occurred to me that everybody's usernames were going to be longer than mine was, right? Because I'm like, oh, that's plenty of characters for my username. But if we go look at your username, that, because you're external, is really long. And I bet you anything it's my username limit. So you guys who are having submit troubles, it could just be because I didn't have enough characters for that username. So I'm going to up that, and I'm just going to be really limitless here and save that. And one of the nice things about DBXL is if we do have a, what we call it a shredding error with a document, the document doesn't save to the database, we can always try saving it to the database again and see what happens. And so you can see that's how we figured it out. It was the username was too long. So I'm going to go ahead and I don't know which of these are mine and which of these belong to others, but I'm going to go ahead and just reshred these guys. And they all saved. So everybody who is having submit problems, you should be able to try again.
That fixed it. That worked, Hillary. Evan.
That fixed it? Okay. Hi,
Yeah.
Evan. Thanks for letting me know. Okay, so that was the problem we had, was that I did not have that field big enough. So yeah, you've got yours all in there. We've got Evan's in there. We've got Scott's. We've got Benjamin's. So yay, problem solved, and we got to do troubleshooting. Okay, so what I think we should do, if anybody has, does anybody else have anything blocking? Oh, okay. Yeah, good question, Benjamin. The how long using the forms field looking for integer instead of string. That was a good point. I did actually set the Qdabra forms use time to an invarchar, but again, I didn't make that very big, you guys. I wasn't very generous. I set a lot of things to invarchar because I wasn't sure what would get put in there. But let me just bump these. Let's just bump all these up in case anybody's chatty. Okay, and then we'll go ahead and get back to get back to where we were. Okay, so again, as with yesterday, please reach out. You guys have my email. Drop me an email if you get stuck on a lab or you need help. We'll go ahead and move forward to Ashish's next lab on copying and pasting rules. I gave you a little sneak peek on that. But Ashish, I'll just hand this off to you for now, and you can go ahead and present and walk through your lab.
Can we get a break? You actually never did that, I don't think.
Oh, I said labs. I said labs and break. Does everybody need 5 more minutes? Absolutely. Let's give everybody, is 5 more minutes okay for everyone?
Yeah.
Okay, let's do let's do 5 more minutes and then we'll reconvene. So, okay, we'll say 10:10 because Irina's not going to like it if I say 10:08 or 10:09. So, okay, 10:10, and then Ashish is going to show you copying and pasting rules.
I have my mic on. I still can't seem to submit.
Okay, let's take a look. Why don't you share out?
Okay. Sure. Okay, so I have basic information in here. Just never goes anywhere they ask me.
Yeah, let's double check. Let me check the database. Yeah, I mean, I should have maybe had you guys pop up information on where things, whether it succeeded or not, but I was trying to keep things a little
simple.
Yeah, exactly. So let me just execute and see. Okay, so no, you're definitely not getting data in. So let's double check and see what might be going wrong. So the first thing I like to check is, so let's go back to your form. So let's look at your submit button first. So we'll click on your submit button and rules, upper right.
Okay.
So upper right, yeah, submit to DBXL. Okay, so you're setting that to go, great. And let's go ahead and say done. And the next thing we're going to do is let's double check your qRules temp. You were headed there, so let's go double check that. Sorry, where you are in this data source. Yeah, click on temp command and let's look at the rules on temp command. Okay, run a queue. Yes, you got that set up correctly, it looks like. And then, yeah, under actions, where you are down below, actions and on submit. And let's look at the rules there. And set values for DBXL submit is the one I want to look at. Perfect. All right, and that looks right. That all looks fine. Okay, and so go ahead and open it and in Forms Viewer. And what we're going to do is we're going to do the same thing that Alice and I did. So just fill out a little bit of data, whatever you need to. Yeah, that one's got to be a number. That top one. How many forms have you created? That one is a number.
Oh, that's.
Is that maybe what's been going wrong?
Possibly. I thought I did last time though.
Oh, well, wait. No, I think I'm lying to you anyway. You guys cannot trust me. I've got to go back to my database. I haven't looked at my database in a minute, so I don't remember. No, it looks like I had in varchar. So I had text for all of those. So I had text for all of those, so you should be fine. And it was just the rating and the day number that I had a number for. But yeah, if you trust me by this point, guys, more's the pity to you. So, okay, so before you click the submit button, I want you to right click anywhere and hit inspect. All right, and so now I want you to hit the network tab there at the top. Network. All right, now you can go back to your form and click the submit button. It did nothing. Can you click the submit button one more time slowly for me?
It's depressed. Very depressed.
Yeah. Interesting. Okay, let's go back to FormsDesigner and see what the heck is up with our submit button. All right, so we've got a submit button. Can you click something else and then select that submit button again? Anything. Yeah, just on your form, like a control on your form or something. Click on rating or something, and then let's click OK. And now let's look at the rules again on submit. Okay, so we're setting submit to go. And could you click that submit field where it says set a field's value and we've got submit. Let's just make sure we're all okay. So that seems fine. Why is this not making a network call? All right, so here's what we're going to do. Can you copy the link from that and paste it into chat for me?
This one?
Yeah. And the reason I'm going to ask you to do that is just because I think I think we're all old friends now, and it's okay for me to tell you I can't think unless I'm clicking.
Gotcha.
You guys have got to let me click, or I just can't think. So let me share my screen real quick, and let's see if we can see what's up. Yeah, my fingers are just itching. Okay, and so this is yours, and we've got rules. That looks right. The other stuff looks like it's running correctly because we double checked that. We're just going to, because I know we've got to get back on track. So we're running a qrules command. We're setting it to dot, and then we're setting that to the result field, which is all great. That all looks great. And open, inspect, off to the network tab, and I'm helpful, aren't I? I'm helping with those class averages, aren't I? Submit. Right, so there is just something going really strange with your submit button or with something, because it doesn't seem to actually be
Doesn't do anything, yeah.
executing the rule, right? So
Yeah.
because that rule, the rules on that get included by default when we add the XTP, I'm a little confused. So we stop if it's blank, we reset self, we set success to true. That should be fine. We set our values. We set submit to go. We set submit to go.
Has that form been saved? Do you need to save it before you can run it?
Actually, I was just looking at what he'd done before. I hadn't actually saved it, but I think.
Yeah, I saved it. I could try again.
No, I think I know where the problem is. Let me double check mine real quick. Let's look at the rules on mine. Okay, so we've got submit to DBXL. So somehow in yours, and again, we're going to go ahead and let's blame my instructions, but somehow in yours, this rule got changed. And this is what the rule is supposed to look like. Submit to DBXL, and it looks like this. And so I think what you've got happening here is this set submit to go. That's actually supposed to go on the button, right? That set submit to go. And then this other rule that's supposed to be here. Let me get back to the. I think maybe accidentally, yes. And so I'm going to go ahead and do this. We're just going to copy it over from my form. Cancel. Now the good news is you could have always done another new blank form and added the XTP again to see that, but it's okay because I don't know what I've just done. I am struggling. I am struggling with this Teams toolbar today. Let me see if I can get my. Oh, for heaven's sakes, guys, I'm going to stop sharing and share again as soon as I get control of myself here. There we go. And let me come back and start sharing again. It's like, there's going to be this recording and it's just going to be me kind of sad and whiny. All right. And so we're going to set temp command. Okay. So now this should be, and I'm just going to rename this. I'd like to rename it as mine was named, but I've lost mine now. So we'll just call it submit to DBXL. Okay. Now we're going to hit save. Good point on the saving. Oh. I don't suppose you made a change while I was making a change.
No, I just closed mine. I did not.
Okay, we'll just rattle through this one more time. You guys, I know now we're getting our extra break that everybody wanted, and then Ashish will go, and then we're gonna just be ready to rumble. Okay, rules. So it's submit to DBXL. Well, at least everybody got to see kind of like, some of you guys have met with me before, and I've helped you with form problems, and you'll have seen that I'll use those inspect tools in the browser to kind of see, what's going on and what might have happened or didn't happen. And so using that network tab helped me see that this was not actually sending data over the wire, right? And I think setting it to go and then setting itself back to go, we were kind of blocking ourselves there. So let's save. Fingers crossed, and then refresh this, close that. Another thing that I'll just mention offhand is that And I don't think that's the issue right at this instant. It could just be my connection, but yeah, that's fine. Is that I know Mel mentioned yesterday with her central flows form that it took a little while for it to open and load everything. We actually cache information in your form, so like your form resource files and stuff like that. Those get cached locally and only updated if they get changed. So if you've got a form that's really heavy loading, the first time you open it, it's going to only be the first time you open it because resource files get cached. All right, so let's just hit inspect one more time. Network, submit. Yay, this is our network call. That's what we were looking for. And we'll just pop over here to our database and make sure you're in it. You are not quite in it. Let's just fix one more thing here. And that was on our username rules. Set username. If username is blank, you've got something there to set username, but it is not, I'm not seeing it here in the,
because you're doing it?
database. Oh yeah, thanks. Well, I mean, I should have a username, but yeah, I think the point is that I wouldn't be expecting to see your username there, would I?
Right.
It would be
form,
mine.
but yeah. Okay, I'll send one through here in a minute.
Okay, and I'm gonna go ahead and let's just get back on track.
Forget about that. Never
Yeah.
happened.
Josh, we're gonna pretend like that never. I'm gonna get that out of the recording. Okay. No, but if you do get stuck as you're finishing it up, let me know because I can take another look at it. All right.
Thanks, Alex.
You bet. Here we go, guys. We've got to get back to where we started, which is here on copying and pasting rules. We're not back to a break already. Here we go. Copying and pasting rules. Finally. So we've just added this to FormsDesigner. Ashish added this. And Ashish, will you just please take it away from me?
Thank you. So this lab is all about copying and pasting rules, either it be action or formatting. It makes our development cycle much easier, much faster, as Hilary showed previously. So for this lab, I have this document here. So please open it up. And I also have included a starter form and some resource file for images. You might use this starter form or you can use a blank form as well. And so let's get started. I'll use this starter form for day 2 lab 3. So I'll be uploading that first. Okay, so let's get designing it. As you can see, it is the survey form used by Hilary in lab 2. So you can use that form as well. So there are some prerequisites for this. We'll need to download our checked and unchecked images. So please go to the lab folder and download these 2 images. And after that, we'll be uploading our resource images. As I have showed you earlier as well, we'll go to resource file sections in here, and we'll add those 2 files. Okay, so we have added both those images, and I will click out of here. So after that, we'll add some objects in container. So in data fields, we'll select my fields node and add a group. So we'll name it toggle as well. So select on my fields group and add a new group. So let's name it toggle. And what we'll do again is select this toggle group and we'll add a new field to it. And we'll name it is feasible. And remember to set the type to attribute and not element. So we'll set its type to attribute and the data type will be true or false. So let's add that as well. As you can see, it is now in here. So after that, we'll be adding 2 picture buttons to our form. So I'll place my cursor under the repeating section in here, and I'll add 2 picture buttons. As you can see, we have 2 picture buttons here now. And after that, I'll select the first picture button and add an image to it. So I'll select this picture button, and if you can see here, there's input for image, and I'll go there and select the checked image and hit apply. I'll do the same for the second image as well, but instead of checked, I'll select unchecked. And after this, I think we need to adjust our height and width. I'll be setting them both to 25. And let's do the same for checked image. Okay, so after that, we'll add a new section for testing our formatting rules. So I'll go in here, add a section, and select the toggle group and click on done. And when you can see there's a new section in here, so I'll type something in here like this is a test section for visibility or formatting rule. And after doing this, I'll hit save. So now let's start copying and pasting our action rules. Before doing that, we'll need to add an action rule to checked button. So let's select the checked button in here, go to rules and add an action rule. So we're going to name it toggle checked. And after that, we'll add a action and it is set a field value. So we'll add a set of field value action. And after doing that, we'll select the is visible field from toggle group and click on OK. So it's also in here. And after that, we are going to paste this formula in our value input. So I'll go to the value input, remove the double quote from here and paste this in here. So we can do this with insert field or group and insert function combined as well. I'll show that to you as well. So let's go to insert function, go to math, and we can select not from in here. So click insert that. And the Boolean value is going to be, first we are going to select our field. So we'll select the is visible, and the is visible needs to be true. So we set that to true and click on OK. So after doing this, we're going to copy this action rule. You can see that there is a button to copy either the selected rule or copy all rules. But since we have only one rule in here, we can hit on any one of these rules. And also notice that this button right now is disabled, and this is to paste a rule. Right now we don't have any action rule in our clipboard, so it is disabled. And if I hit this button, you can see that this button is now enabled. And so let's go in our unchecked button. And again in here, the paste button is enabled. I'll hit paste in there and I'll click done. So our action rules have been created, copied and pasted. And after that, we'll do the same for formatting rules. So we'll select the checked pixel button, go on rules and add a new formatting rule. And we'll name it toggle visibility. And if you notice here, the condition is none and it's saying us to specify condition. So we'll click in here and let's copy paste this formula. So you can do the same outcome using insert filter group. So we'll just try that again. I'll go here, select the is visible node and click on OK. And we need to insert our equality operation. I just forgot that. So it's not equals true. So the value must not be true. And I'll click on OK. And you'll also notice that it's saying please select a formatting option. So when the visibility is not true, we'll hide this control. And yeah, that's for this button. And we're again going to copy this formatting rule. So we'll copy this formatting rule. You can hit, so let's say, I haven't selected any formatting rule, right? So the copy selected rule button is disabled. When we select a rule, then only this button is enabled. So I'm going to click on this button, go here and paste this here. But we need to modify our condition. So we'll hide this button when the visibility is true. So let's do that and click on OK. And we'll click on done. So after that, we'll also add a formatting rule to our test section. So we'll copy our rule from checked pixel button. And remember, it's formatting. We need to copy the formatting rule, not action rule. So we'll copy the formatting rule and put that rule in this section and click on done. And we'll save it. So let's open up this form. Okay, so it took some time to load this image resource. As you can see, like we had two picture buttons here, right? So what we are doing is we are using custom formatting logic to create custom checkboxes. So you can do that for many other fields as well. So if I go in here and click on this button, you can see that it gets checked and we see this section in here. And if I uncheck it, yeah, it's hidden again. So does anyone have any question here?
Thank you so much, Ashish, for showing us that. And even more, thank you for implementing this. Being able to copy and paste rules has been something I think a lot of people have really missed in FormsDesigner. We got kind of spoiled with that being in InfoPath. And so I've just really appreciated the work you've done to get this implemented. And I think it's wonderful to have this added. So let's see, everybody, we need to do our lab. We also need to have a few minutes for me to show you a few new things. And we need to make sure we save time for a little bit of a wrap up. So how would everybody like to proceed? Shall we do the bonus demo and do the wrap up, and then you guys will have your own time to work on the lab. Do you wish to get started on this copy paste rule lab now in class? Why don't we just do a show of hands? Everybody who just wants to go forward with the demo and work on the lab later. Okay, I'm seeing two hands. Okay. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. We're counting on me to count 7. Okay, so I'm seeing 7. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, 9, 10, whatever. It looks like everybody wants to go ahead, right? Am I reading this correctly? We all are just we're gonna motor forward, and then we're going to let you guys work on this lab on your own. I don't think anybody's going to get stuck on this lab. I think everybody's going to be just fine with this lab. I do want to respond to Josh's question. We don't have support yet for renaming fields in FormsDesigner. Just feel free to add another field named username with a capital N, and then your data should start saving with your username. So with all that said, I will go ahead and show you these new little things that I wanted to show you that are coming soon in FormsDesigner. Feel free to speak up if I've misinterpreted and you all want to work on a lab instead. So coming soon in FormsDesigner, there's a few things that you saw a little bit of already. One thing that we do have added now is we have the function picker added. That was a tough one for me. And you saw that in a couple of your labs today where we can now use the function picker to select XPath functions. I used the pretty much the layout from InfoPath to determine the layout for this, so it should feel familiar. InfoPath tracked your most recently used. We didn't want to be using the bandwidth to track that, so instead we listed a few things under popular. If you have an argument for something you feel belongs under popular, let me know and I'll get it added. But otherwise, we've got all the functions, date, time, fields, math, text, and user. We are using placeholders in these to try to make it a little easier for you to remove the text and then insert a field or group so that you can now use the function picker here. So that was one big thing we've done recently. Another two things that are currently in process are Josh has had success with his lab, everybody. I just want to let you know. No, I'm kidding. I'm very excited. Another two things that we have in process are some UI revamps as well as work towards inserting repeating tables. So one thing with repeating tables that I don't have done quite yet is the ability to select which fields you're going to include. So right now I've got a little bit of that hard-coded in my local dev branch because I just wanted to be able to show you that our intention is that when you select where you add your repeating table, you'll also be able to pick which fields you want to include. For right now, I just hard-coded on the back end which fields to include the pickers, but we are determining control type based on data type, just like InfoPath does. So in InfoPath, when you add a repeating table, you get the fields you want with the presumed control type for the field type. So we are definitely copying that here. And so that should be coming very soon. Not this next release, but probably because I think we're going to be releasing very soon, but probably the one after that. And then also we're working on a little bit of a UI refresh for the data connection tab, and this will probably get carried over to some of the other tabs to kind of just brighten them up and get them freshened up a little bit. And I just wanted to show you guys this real quick as well. This was designed by Karu, and she came up with a little bit of a new UI for us that we are working on getting implemented. So that's what we've got coming. I'm going to go ahead and get back to I'm never going to click the right button. Nope. I'm never going to click the right button. We can just give up on me in PowerPoint right now. It's obvious that PowerPoint is not one of my prime skill sets. let's see. Here's where we're at. There we go. So that's what we've got coming. Full support for inserting all info path functions using the formula editor, UI refresh, and that initial work towards adding repeating table with controls. So yesterday we did not do much of a wrap up. I think we should today. So I would like to just ask somebody to chime in. With some benefits of XTPs, what are some benefits you saw to XTPs?
Oh, it's definitely helpful. This is Chris. Definitely helpful when you're doing, rework of stuff like the authentication and stuff like that. It saves you way long time of having to put in the information.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So when we've got these features that we want to add consistently across a number of forms, having an XTP to add them allows us to, first off, not have to manually handcraft all of our rules again and again. But, also it has a testing facet, right? So you create your XTP, you've got your XTP, it's tested, you add it to your form, and you just know going forward that you can just keep using that same XTP and you don't have to retest it, right? So that's very useful. I've got some hands up, and I'm not sure if those are from the voting earlier about whether to continue, but if you do have a question, be sure to speak up, or if you want to chime in on one of these, please feel free to do that as well. And so can anybody think of a scenario where they might want to use the Authenticator XTP?
Yeah, absolutely. For the Douglas Education Service District, we worked a lot with like parents and teachers that aren't necessarily within our tenant, and so it's like that's a big thing for us to be able to get information from them using forms or other things without actually giving them access to our SharePoint and tenant and things. So that's that I can definitely see us using.
That makes complete sense. That's a great use case. Fantastic, Benjamin. Thanks for sharing that. Okay, anybody want to chime in with some thoughts about why DBXL might be useful? All right, I am a big proponent of it because of the SQL integration. Like I said, getting your data into and out of SQL is a huge thing. If you're an info path old timer like I am, and you worked with database forms back in the year of our Lord 2003, right? You know that you have had to struggle over the years to find efficient ways to deal with your data. Oh yeah, and as Evan mentions, it's a time saver. It's going to be more efficient than trying to submit your data to a SharePoint list. So you could even use, the forms your Q rules feature to submit to SharePoint lists to get your repeating data off to lists. But you still then lose that powerful SQL engine. So I definitely recommend it for getting your data into and out of your forms a little simpler. And so extra features from the DBXL XTP, does anybody have any guesses or thoughts on that one? So the thing we get most excited about here is how easy it makes submitting to DBXL. And I think maybe you had to have done this before we created the XTP. Prior to having the XTP created, then you would have had to set up your submit connection, right? You would have had to set up a web service submit connection in your form and configure all of that. And I love how easy it makes it to submit to DBXL. You create your doc type in DBXL, and then you go put the name in, like a single rule over in your XTP, and it just makes it super easy to add that submit. Finally, I know somebody's going to answer me on this one. Anybody, why would you want to copy rules in your form?
So you have
So you don't have to
redundancy
retype
that's
it?
exactly the same, and you don't make a mistake.
Yeah, both of you are right. Yeah, you can have them exactly the same. You don't have to worry about you're going to make a mistake. Benjamin, you're right. You don't have to retype them. You just, anytime you can do things one time, right? Let's do it one time. It's the do not repeat yourself principle of programming. And that's, something that you'll see in things like our XTPs where we've got and I don't have a single one open, of course, but as you noticed, there were those action sections with the rules on them. So you could, on every submit button in every view, have logic to submit to DBXL, or you could have this field in a secondary data source like we do in the XTP that has all the logic to submit to DBXL, and now all you have to do in all your different views is set that field to go. Right. So by getting your rules consolidated that way as well, you also cut down on rework and having the same logic twice. But definitely copying and pasting rules is a huge feature, and I really appreciate Ashish adding this. Okay, so we did quiz. So let's do takeaways. And I had you guys are going to hate me for this. I had a fun idea this morning, and I was thinking, I want everybody to type in like a couple words into chat that kind of summarize your takeaways from today. It can just be, efficiency from XTP or rule copying, or I don't know, data load, like you were, so yeah, copy paste equals good. Yay for Preston, perfect, rule copy, right? Keep going, guys. Chris is liking the new features. The visibility of sections, that's fun. Oh, Josh, we're going to talk about that. Qdabra forms are not case sensitive. Qdabra forms use XML, and XML is case sensitive. So good point on the case sensitivity. But yeah, you and I both remembered about looking at that, because that was the little thing with the username not being there. Thanks, Josh. Yeah, Benjamin, DBXL is powerful and dynamic, gives you a lot of power if you want it, if you need it. The redundancy aspect, Missy, of not having to repeat yourself. I think we really looked at that with both XTPs and with rule copying, this idea of making things easier by reusing your logic, right? Reuse your logic wherever you can. Thanks, Chris. We aim for platform agnosticity. So I appreciate you noticing that. Awesome, Scott. That's a great takeaway. We're expanding what Forms Viewer can do and what can be done with it. And that's, I think that's one of the big takeaways I like for people to have from training is, and it's hard because it's like Patrick said at the beginning of class, we've got all these basics that we want you to know, like how to use DBXL and how to consolidate your logic and how to use XTPs. We want you guys to have this good basis, but we also want you to have an understanding of how much power and creativity you can have here. And so we also want to show you this expansiveness, these things you can do that are maybe outside of what you're thinking. One thing I've noticed over my years of working on things for others is that, and you, I'm sure as form designers and IT professionals have noticed the same thing, and that is that your users often don't imagine what they might have until you start giving them a glimpse of what they could have. Like they say they want this, you build it for them, and you add on a little extra something that you're like, oh, this might be nice. And then they try the thing, and now all of a sudden they've got 600 ideas for how they want it to work. Right? But we all do that. We all kind of, yeah, exactly. Or they don't actually know what they want until they've tried it. We almost all have to have something in our hands to help us define what we do and don't want. I think some people have the gift of imagining it without seeing it, but I think a lot of us, we really need to go poke at something, right? To see what we really want. And so I'm hoping that this class, this opportunity to kind of try different things, even if some of them feel out of reach or like you don't quite understand them yet. I hope it expands your creativity and you start understanding the kinds of things you can do with this. Tomorrow, we're going to implement QDocChat tomorrow. It will allow you to create a document chat support bot using your own documentation. And it's going to be a busy day. Again, there's going to be a lot to do. But as always, we'll be here if you need us for help as you work through these labs. Before we wrap it up for the day, does anybody have any other questions or concerns? I will, so Teams takes a little time to process the recording, and then I like to get it up to Hightail too in case anybody needs it. I will send out an email later today with links to the recording. I promised a recording from a webinar on Central Flows. And I think that's everything. Please reach out to me if you need help with a lab, if you get stuck. I'm happy to help you today. I'm Pacific time zone, so I'm usually at my desk till about 5, and then I'll be back again for class tomorrow. And I think that is probably about that. Let me know if you need anything. I really appreciate you taking time to attend training, and I hope everybody has an absolutely wonderful rest of their day.
Hey Hillary, I actually had a question. I don't know how like relevant it is, but more of a curiosity, I guess.
You bet.
It's so in that data connections part where we were setting up that connection to the database, and the thing about the checkbox for the query on form loading.
Yes, query on load.
Yeah, so I guess I'm curious as to if it's like best practice to not use that option, what would be the use case for actually using that?
So I have a strong opinion on that. You'll be happy to hear.
Okay.
I'm glad you asked because I have feelings. Look, I don't like data connections that query on load. Basically, that checkbox means that this query is going to run every single time this form opens. There are use cases, and so I know forms are new for you. We can connect to SharePoint data connection. We can connect to a list or library in SharePoint. We can connect to data sources like REST web services or SOAP connections now. There are cases where, yes, every single time my form opens, I have this drop down of options that's populated by a SharePoint list. And every single time the form opens, I need to make sure that that data source is queried so that my options are available in my drop down. However, a lot of the time, we really don't need any data every single time we open our form. And anytime we can move some of our data queries out a little bit so they're not all happening on load, our form's going to load a little more quickly. So it could very well be that half the time if I open a form that's already been submitted, nobody would have been able to change that drop-down value anyway because I've locked all the controls down. In that case, I wouldn't need to query that data connection, right? Or it could be like in this case, I only want to query for some specific information on the click of a button. Or it could be that my data connection only needs data returned when a different field has been populated because the data it gets back is determined by a value in that field. So I would say almost all of the time, I don't query data on load. Another scenario where it's great not to query data on load is if you have to have logic in your form to change the data connections URL. So a lot of this work we do is dynamic, and much of that is because we do work for other people. So I work on a form on my tenant and I need to go put it on your tenant. I'm probably going to put rules in there to change all my data connections to your URLs, right, when the form is open. And if the data connection is querying on load, it's going to query before any logic to change those connection URLs could run. So in general, I don't use query data on load, and in general, I would encourage everyone to think very hard about whether they should be using query data on load. Was that helpful?
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you.
Okay. it's I've been at Qdabra for what, 17 years. I've been working with these types of technologies for a long time, and over time I have, as we can tell, developed many strong opinions on many things, which I'm more than happy to share given half a chance. Does anybody else have any other questions? All right. Well, thank you again so much, everyone. Greatly appreciate you. Greatly appreciate your attendance. Greatly appreciate your participation. This has been a fantastic class. It's so big. I was a little concerned how we were going to do with everybody's doing so well, though. And I just thank you so much. And we'll talk tomorrow. Have a great day. Bye.